Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you all. I fumbled my intro a little bit by hitting the key to restart the intro music before it was done, but figured I might as well just flip the switch and head right on in. Oh, I need to update my overlay frame. I don't want this divider right in the middle of it. Hang on a second. Let me see about just changing that. There, that's better. I also think that let's see. Oh, that's that window. I really should have set this scene up before going live, shouldn't I have done? Let's see. Do they let me change it now, or is it too late because I'm live? Have I screwed myself? I guess it's okay. Professional streamer like. Yeah, really, really amazing. I might have slightly done something stupid, but let's, here. I mean, this is not the most ideal interface, but let's just nudge this slightly there. And we'll go like, yeah, we'll go a little bit. Yeah. I feel like I've screwed up the aspect ratio here. How can I just cause that to reset? Yeah, it's easy to make this change like when I'm offline, but being online, I think the UX in OBS is a little bit, it's not letting me do the normal thing that I would do. Yeah, sorry folks, just 1 second. I'm just trying to see if there's a good way to solve it. Yeah, I think it's good enough. It's trimming a little bit around the edges, but that's totally fine. Okay, let's jump in. Sorry about that little false start. I normally would have set that up before hitting the go button on the broadcast, and in my eagerness, I didn't. So we're doing it live. But thank you all very much for joining in. It's really cool to see so many of you that are interested in learning a little bit more about what I've been working on here. This is a very early look. I mean, the stream says first look, but it's, obviously there have been little teaser glimpses of this last week during our anniversary week events. But this is basically a first look at the system, and it is very early along. And I hope that you'll all give patience and understanding to the fact that this system is very early in its development. I was debating with myself, like, should I get out in front of the community and share it? Should I, invite people to sort of follow along with the development? And these are things that worked out really well for me with Foundry VTT itself. As some of you may remember, the very early days for Foundry was, on Patreon, and Foundry VTT version 1.7, and inviting people to follow along and even use the virtual tabletop when it was very much not finished. But the community responded so well to that. The community responded really well to being kept in the loop and kept on the train of development and seeing all the updates go out, week after week and month after month. It worked really, really well. And so I'm hoping that lightning can strike twice, and that development of a game system in this environment will be something that the community really relishes being involved in and part of, and seeing happen over the course of time. But where we are now with Foundry version 11, 3 years after release, and release itself was, a year and a half after the beginning of Patreon testing, we're probably that same sort of 4 years away from a system like Crucible really feeling like it's, finished in any sort of way. So this is something that's just really early, and I just hope everyone will keep that in mind. And judge accordingly and be understanding both of what currently is supported in this system, but more importantly of what is the philosophical direction that it's going. Like, what is it that we're trying to do with this? What is the goal? What are some of the gameplay principles that we are involving here? And so I'm going to spend a lot of time today talking about those and showing you how stuff works. I'll put a little bit of like quiet background music on. Hopefully that will sound good to everybody. Let me know if it ends up being like a little bit too loud, but it'll just give a little bit of mood. Mood music by Tabletop RPG Music. Ian, good friend Ian, always just leaning on his stuff pretty heavily. All right, so for today's stream, this is going to be about the game system called Crucible. It's brand new. It's a game system developed by myself and mostly by myself, but with assistance from some other members of the Foundry Virtual Tabletop team. So our team is working on it together, and it's been really exciting to kind of build something that's a gameplay experience that's designed to really use all of the features that Foundry VTT can offer and try and use those in a really integrated and sort of seamless way. So what we're working on preparing at the moment is all of these compendium packs that are part of what will be the first public playtest, all of the things that you need to run a playtest game of the system, and all of the corresponding documentation required to help you understand how to do that and how it would work. Certainly, I expect this video to be a good visual aid for a lot of that will supplement some cases where the documentation is perhaps lacking at this early stage, but I hope that between the video and the rules docs and the pre-generated contents that that we have in the system, hopefully those of you who are willing and able to help with testing will be able to find your way through to doing that. So let's start with a moment about what is Crucible. And I'm not going to read all of these entries, word for word, both because that wouldn't be the best use of time on the stream, but also because some of this text is just not really all that, finely edited at this point. But Crucible's a new gameplay. It's a new game system, a new RPG built exclusively for Foundry VTT. From the ground up, the system is set up to really use all of the features that the VTT can offer, and all of that is really in service of allowing GMs and players to really focus on narrative, on improvisation, on role play, on being creative and having fun, and relishing all of the epic combat encounters or epic exploration that they have of a fantasy world. And so what we're trying to do with Crucible is just have really rich systems that make that interesting and fun, but that those systems are automated and under the hood, and they're ones that just sort of happen in the background, and you have a really intuitive and seamless user experience where you can just focus on playing your character. That's the goal. That's sort of what most RPGs say that they're about. Of course, the way that we're going about trying to accomplish that goal is a little bit different than the way that some other systems are designed. We have no intentions at this time to send Crucible to print, so we aren't beholden to the needs of creating a print book, not even necessarily a PDF, although one of the very common questions that we faced is like, will all this rules content be available online in some sort of system reference type format? And I do think that eventually we would do something like that so that it's possible to review what are the rules of combat without necessarily needing to be in your Foundry VTT game session at the time. We're not beholden to needing to print a book here, and so we're able to do something with development that can throw away any limitations that are things that would only work in print format. And that gives us a lot of things that we can do that are inventive and fun, that kind of can tear up the script of the way that some existing RPGs do things. I am going to try and answer questions throughout the stream today. So please do feel free to ask your questions in chat. I might not necessarily answer them all immediately because I want to make sure to get through, honestly, what's going to be probably a pretty long stream. There's a lot that I have to get into. So Tom asks, am I the only person developing this system? More or less, but it's kind of it's a little bit of a team effort. It's not only me, but it is mostly my dev time at the moment. How are you? Thank you, Apari. I'm doing better. I'm still a little bit sick, but I'm mostly over what I caught last week, and thank God, because it was really unpleasant. But yeah, I'm mostly over that and just have a little bit of a residual residual voice irritation, but hopefully it doesn't sound too bad on the stream. Question from Nocturnal about why a grid-based system. Use grids IRL because it's easier. VTT doesn't need it. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I've experimented a little bit with gridless mechanics as well, and there is something to be said for that. And I don't necessarily think that Crucible couldn't work that way, but one of the things that was helpful with a grid was as a way to discretize distance and in the way that it feeds into action economy, and the relationship between like the action cost of a certain amount of movement was a little bit easier in a grid-based setting, but doesn't necessarily need to be. And so exploring options for sort of pure gridless play is something that I would be interested in. Anyways, back to sort of what is Crucible. We have a couple of really central focuses with the system. One is having really meaningful and rich character advancement through a set of meaningful character development choices that you have. Every time you level up, you have key investment opportunities that you can make in enriching and deepening your character and their abilities. I really love games that have a big focus on character building and character development, and so as the kind of thing that I love, that's right at the heart of what Crucible is about. It's also a system that has some, I think really appealing dice mechanics that give a strong mathematical foundation for a good trade-off between random chance and probabilistic outcomes, but also feeling the sense that when you invest in a skill, you're really going to feel a meaningful return on investment from that, and you are going to be reliably better at doing certain things. That's something that's important. A lot of automation in the system to handle bookkeeping in combat, but not just bookkeeping in a way that makes combat fun. So seamless end-to-end integration of like performing an action, having that action apply damage and effects, and special visualizations that help you immerse yourself in the flow of combat, and having that all happen without you needing to spend a lot of prep time, connecting all of those wires yourself. Also, Crucible really emphasizes a lot an imaginative and novel magic system. We have a spellcraft system that I'm going to show that I think is really different than ones that I've seen in other RPGs, although there are ones that have done other sort of composition-based spellcraft approaches, so it's not entirely novel, but it's one that I'm really excited about, and I think there's a lot of depth and potential in the spellcraft system that I'm really excited to to continue developing, and that I hope that you all will love. Other things that kind of make Crucible unique, it's going to have relatively open development, so we're going to make this available for the first public playtest at first to Patreon supporters, and then after there's a period of time where patrons have some exclusive access to the first test, that first test will be available to everybody. And then we're going to have phases where, there's going to be, sort of playtest 1 will be followed by playtest 2, which will add some new things to test, some new game systems, some new mechanics, and that's all going to be handled, hopefully, like very openly and in collaboration with the community, who will, I hope, be providing some feedback and giving us some great ideas about how to continue improving upon the system. What will be included in the first playtest 1 is a little sort of scenario where you'll be able to, participate in sort of a 6-day gauntlet of kind of arena-style challenges using this map that we threw together. There's enemies, there's creatures. You'll be able to roll up a party of characters and kind of try and play through the gauntlet, each encounter in that gauntlet has a little bit more challenge, and each one is one where dispensing with realism of fantasy progression, your characters will level up in between each challenge. So you sort of play the first one at level 1 and then advance your character to level 2 and then play the second encounter and then advance your character to level 3 and play the third encounter. It's kind of a little bit of a contrived way for us to give you a structured way to try out these combat systems with characters that you've created and get a sense for how all of these mechanics are working together. And give you something that you can just jump into with a couple of friends and sit down and say like, okay, so let's go see what Crucible's all about. Let's go give it a try. So that's what the first playtest is going to include. It's not like there's no lore. It's not like an adventure. There's not like a world here that you're exploring. So it's going to be pretty like role play light. But the first playtest is really about giving you a framework for getting your hands on the game mechanics and getting a sense for how they play in practice. Another really important thing about Crucible that I want to emphasize is that it is designed to be largely setting agnostic. Now, it leans into being a fantasy-based setting in terms of like many of the talents and of course the concept of like spellcraft and adventure and the premise of this like mode of play. It is a fantasy system. However, one of the things that's interesting about it is that it's also an engine. It's a framework that can be very easily substituted. So like weapons and armor can be swapped out, archetypes and ancestries and backgrounds can be swapped out, talents can be swapped out. And so there is a framework here that could be very easily, well, I don't want to say very easily because that's not true. It would require a non-trivial amount of work, but it could be without excessive difficulty reskinned for like modern or fantasy type gameplay. So you'll see a little bit more about how that works in a little bit. Jink asks, swapped out with an API or within Foundry. So I don't have them implemented yet, but there will be a couple of settings where you can toggle like which compendium pack is your source of truth for like what populates the talent tree. Currently there's an underlying API for that where you can like say, instead of the core Crucible talents compendium pack that has all these talents in it, you can define your own compendium pack or define an extension compendium pack that extends the functionality of the core one. I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to the talent system in general. We're going to have mechanisms for you who are participating in the playtest to provide us with feedback. We'll have channels in Discord. We'll probably set up like a Google form as well. Ways for you to share with us your experiences with the playtest, and I'm looking very much forward to hearing those, good or bad. I think that's the kind of feedback that will be really valuable at this point. And so yeah, that's kind of like a whirlwind overview of what the system is. My plan for today is to kind of go through the rules of the system in sort of the order that they're presented in the rules compendium, and just go through each of the pages and journal entries and talk about what the rules are and the way that they work, and show some like real examples of them in practice, and maybe get some ideas from the community about how they could be better, and answer your questions, and just kind of go through end to end and talk about what's in it so far. I should just reiterate that what is in the system right now is a strict subset of what we envision will be in the system. There's many ideas that are planned for Crucible but not yet implemented. We've tried to call those out in the notes. Like there's little blocks like this one that highlight areas that are work in progress, but there's honestly many more areas that are work in progress than ones that we've like annotated this way in the journals. So basically everything is a work in progress at this point, but some things especially so. But yeah, in terms of the way that we've organized the rules content for the game, we kind of put character creation as the first port of call after the introduction to the game system. And so I think that's where I want to spend the next maybe hour or so of time, just going through and making some characters together and talking about what that process looks like, talking about what character advancement looks like, And then once we've made some characters, we'll play out some scenarios. We'll talk about game mechanics, dice mechanics, combat skills, talents. I'm sure all of those topics, will come up during the course of talking about character creation. We'll also spend time talking about adversaries and the system for how defining adversaries works. And so there's a lot to get to. So hopefully that agenda and that plan sounds good to all of you. I don't have any alternative plan to offer if it doesn't, so I guess if not, there's the door, but hopefully you're all interested in seeing a little bit more of that. And so let's go ahead and jump into character creation. Again, this is a subset of what character creation in the final system would look like, but all of the main components are in place for this first playtest. So we call player characters in our system protagonists. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're noble of intention, but it does mean that they are the primary actors in the system. And protagonists are all capable adventurers, but even ones that start at level 1, but they can advance in capability and power all the way up to character level 24, at which point they would be, practically, deific tier, in power compared to other creatures and entities in the world. Whether a long-running campaign in Crucible would ever reach that level or not is purely a matter of whether anyone likes the system enough to keep playing it for that long. If it is intended that most games of Crucible would begin with level 1 characters, and one of the things that we've really wanted to do is to make sure that level 1 doesn't feel shitty. Level 1 should feel fresh and fun, and so character creation of a new level 1 character should give you enough stuff to sink your teeth into that you feel like you've already sort of made your character your own enough that like you're ready to jump in and play. I think there's some systems where it might feel like I don't really get to like be my character until I'm like level 3 or 5 or something, because like I need, this class feature that like then my playstyle really starts to be like the character that I want. Of course that can happen in any game system, and I'm not saying Crucible doesn't, I'm not saying that a level 5 character in Crucible isn't more satisfying than a level 1. But the goal is to really make people feel good about making a brand new character and jumping into things. There's a 6-step process for character creation, and I think the best way to tell is also to show. And so I think what I'd love to do is just make some characters with you and go through this process a couple of times, and each example will be a different type of character, and we'll show some different aspects of like the talent tree or the spellcasting system. And then we'll maybe level them up a bit from there after we make them. So I'm going to go ahead over on my actors tab. I'll go to this pre-gen heroes folder. I don't have anyone in here yet. Let's make character 1, and we'll have to give them some interesting names as well. I got a folder full of some very lovely brand new token artwork from my good friend Kaora before the stream. Some brand new tokens from him that we can use for today's stream of different heroes that we can make. So I think the fun way to do this would be we'll just go through and pick a token and then figure out like what would this protagonist be. So I'll just start at the top here with this sort of fire-based sorcerer type character. So here's what we have. We have this sort of fiery devilkin type character. So the first step of character creation is choosing your ancestry and your background. One of the things that is true on the Crucible character sheet is there are these little notification tooltips that basically like tell you what you have to do next. So anywhere there's this kind of like orange alert pip is something that you have to do it in order to basically complete your process of character creation. So here where there's like an orange pip over choose ancestry, it tells me that I need to choose an ancestry from this compendium pack and drag it onto the character sheet to move forward. So I can just click on these little plus buttons here to quickly open the relevant compendium packs so that I can browse what options are available to me. For this character, we'll use Devilkin as their ancestry because that kind of aesthetically matches the token style that Kaora made. Now, I want to really emphasize with Ancestry that Crucible is not a game system that ships a predefined setting or set of lore. So what I have here is what I'll describe as like a set of example ancestries that aren't necessarily like, these are the ancestries of Crucible. I would say these are ancestries that Crucible supports, that you can have in Crucible. But as a game master, everyone should be encouraged to make their own ancestries. And that process is very easy. So make the ancestries in Crucible that are the right ones for your world and your setting and your lore. These are just generic examples that kind of conform to sort of a vague fantasy-esque, fantasy land. But if you were playing a serious campaign in Crucible, I would suggest that you would want to make your own ancestries that fit the needs of your setting. Let's talk about what an ancestry has in Crucible. So I'll open up Devilkin here. Our little ancestry sheet has a little description block where you can write some text about, what the ancestry is. And then there's just a couple of things that an ancestry configures. And this might, I guess this is locked because the compendium is locked. But say I were to make a new ancestry in the sidebar. Let's do cat folk. We can say, furry friends is our description of this ancestry. Configuration of an ancestry in Crucible, you choose a primary and secondary ability score. Now, these ability scores only affect your starting point for your character. So at level 1, they do affect a certain ability where you have a sort of a biological advantage, where maybe as a catfolk, I'm going to be particularly nimble. So my dexterity may be a little bit advantageous as a starting point. And then I also have a secondary ability score that's going to begin at +2, where your primary is going to begin at +3. Maybe catfolk are, I don't know, what are they? They're clever? Are catfolk clever? We'll say intellect. And then, in addition to that, you choose optionally a resistance and a vulnerability to the ancestry. Now, you can have neither. It is supported to have neither a damage resistance nor a damage vulnerability, but if you want to have a resistance, you must also take a vulnerability. Yes, streaming software does not like drop-down menus. Yes, that's one thing that OBS does not handle well when broadcasting a Chrome window. You can imagine under these drop-down, there is the list of all of the damage types and all of the ability scores that you can choose from. So let's imagine that maybe our catfolk is resistant to, I don't know, what's a catfolk resistant to? Let's say they're resistant to, maybe resistant to radiant damage. Why not? That sounds like a good choice. I don't have any particular lore-based reason to choose this, and then let's say maybe they're vulnerable to electricity damage. Again, if you want to have a resistance on an ancestry, you must also take a vulnerability. So if we were to save this change, then I can, just pop this ancestry right onto the character sheet via drag and drop, and we'll see that we have the ability score, starting ability score bonuses, and starting resistance modifiers that we configured as part of the ancestry. So this is sort of part of the world building engagement that we would encourage game masters to do. Whatever setting you want to run Crucible for, take a little bit of time and make some ancestries that are the right ones for your setting. Now for this example, I'll go back to the Devilkin one that I was doing to kind of match this token artwork. Step 2 of character creation is choosing a background. Very similar to ancestries, but backgrounds do a little bit of different things. Where ancestry classifies the biology and physiology of a character, background is more about your experiences, your cultural upbringing, your professional training, your career to date, or other aspects of your past that occurred prior to the advent of the game's inception. So again, I have some example backgrounds here, and these are not like the backgrounds of Crucible. These are just examples of backgrounds that you might have that are relevant for your game setting where you want to play this game. So much like with Ancestries, we could create a new background. We'll say maybe something like, what's a good background that we could come up with? How about Zookeeper? You were a zookeeper before you became an adventurer. You are great with animals. Our new background, we need to choose a couple of things for configuring the background. We need to choose 4 skills, each of which will begin at the novice rank. I'll talk a little bit more about skills and skill ranks in just a moment, but you can remember for the... please don't keep the catfolk in the zoo, yes. You'll remember for the moment that that the background will increase 4 of your skills by 1 rank up to the novice level. So we can go with beastcraft and survival and mercantilism and performance. Sounds like a great zookeeper. Backgrounds also contain an acquired talent, which can be any tier 0 talent that would be a eligible starting talent for a character. So I might have to take a quick peek at the talent tree to decide like which one I want to include in this ancestry, but let's see, maybe probably preparedness could be good for a zookeeper. Yeah, that seems like a good thematic choice. We'll do preparedness. So just drag and drop this in from the talents compendium, and then this background, we've configured what is the starting talent that this background will come with. So we'll get more to the talent tree in a moment. That was just a little sneak preview, but we've configured this background now that the zookeeper has these skills. It has this acquired talent as its starting point. And so what we could do for our character here is we can just drop in the background that we just configured, and now we are a Devilkin zookeeper, and our skills have those, pips invested into the skills, the 4 that we configured for the background. We have our preparedness talent that we got automatically because of that background as well. Now, I'll maybe do I'll get rid of that background. You notice it got rid of the talent, it got rid of the skills. I'll do one of the more formal backgrounds that I made here. Maybe this one will be we'll do a performer. This looks like sort of like a fiery sorcerer type. We'll say Ferrex the sorcerer. Excuse me. Okay, so that's step 1 and 2. I've chosen an ancestry. I've chosen a background. Let me see if there's just any questions that have shown up real quick. I see a lot of people just being like, excuse me, what's that talent thing? I'm getting there in just a moment. I'm getting there very soon, so don't go anywhere. Don't avert your eyes. The next step of character creation is ability scores. So we have 9 points to spend in our initial ability scores. So that's these 6. The 6 ability scores in the system approximate facets of the character's physical and mental capability. So dice checks in the system are modified by these ability scores, and the ability scores range in value from 1 to 12. So the typical value of one of these ability scores for a sort of non-remarkable human would be 2. Where a score of 1 would indicate an area of comparative weakness relative to your peers, but an ability score of 12 would be for the greatest supernatural entity that has attained a really exceptional capability in a certain area. So there's much more upside potential than downside potential, but you certainly can be worse than average at something if you wish. To have some to take some L's along with all of your W's. Now, player characters must have at least 1 in each of these ability scores. Some adversaries will have 0 in a particular score, which basically is a convention that is used to denote that that particular ability is not applicable to a creature for a certain reason. So strength measures your physical potency, your brawn, your might. Strength affects your use of melee weaponry. It affects your health. It affects your fortitude, defense, and it affects your carrying capacity. Dexterity describes your physical agility and precision. Dexterity affects your use of precision-based weapons, your dodge defense, it contributes to your initiative, and as well as your reflex defense. And I'll talk about what those are in a moment. Toughness is a measure of your physical hardiness and resilience. Toughness affects your health more so than strength. You can see, for example, one of the things that's nice on the character sheet is when you like mouse over a certain thing, there's like a tooltip that will show you basically like how it's computed, so you can remember like what's my health from again, or what's my willpower defense based on. So that's helpful, but toughness affects your health, your fortitude, defense. Wisdom describes your mental potency, depth, and breadth of knowledge. Wisdom influences your morale, which I'll talk about in a little bit, your focus points, and your willpower defense. Intellect is a measure of mental flexibility, swiftness, and precision of thought. Intellect, along with dexterity, affects your initiative in taking action, as well as your reflex defense. It also affects your focus pool, which I should make sure to add here. Presence is a measure of your mental hardiness, your sort of emotional resolve, your charm, your personality, your sort of presence of will. It affects your morale, your willpower defense, and your focus pool. So those are the 6 ability scores. I'm going to make a sort of fire-based spellcaster type character, so I certainly want to like take a little bit of presence, I want to take a little bit of intellect, don't want dexterity to be too low, so I'm putting a couple points into each of these. Gotta have some toughness. I'm willing to leave wisdom as low. I can be a little bit unwise, that's fine. So I end up with a fairly well-rounded set of ability scores here. 1, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3. I could go for something more skewed if I wanted to really kind of go all out at one thing, but I like the slightly more well-rounded approach here, but it's up to you. You have these 9 points to spend. You can't spend more than 3 in any one ability score. So that means if you were to invest 3 into the ability score that is primary for your ancestry, you could start at 6, but you would be sacrificing quite a lot of other abilities in order to do that. So that's my initial ability scores. Next up is skills. And so under the skills category, I start with 2 available skill points that I can choose to invest, in addition to the 4 points that I got for free via the background that was added. So the performer background gave me society, deception, diplomacy, and performance. Let's talk a little bit about skills. Skills in general, I need to open a different rules entry for this. Skills in general represent your education or degree of professional training, or perhaps, self-taught training that your character has received in various areas. So they can come through your background, but generally speaking, skill advancement is going to come from your own life experience and things that you've gotten better at as you go. Each skill begins at a rank of untrained, and there's 5 ranks to each skill: untrained, novice, apprentice, specialist, adept, and master. And there's a lot of specialization that happens within the course of advancing your skills. So if I look, for example, at the society skill, it pops out all of this whole rules text about like what the society skill involves. Maybe we need, from a UI perspective to make this a little bit more distillable, but you can see that there's a text associated with each of the ranks of the skill, as well as specialization paths that I could eventually unlock if I progress the skill enough. So for example, if I put a second point into society, I have 2 here to spend, I can put 1 into society here on the character sheet or here in the skill menu itself, and you'll see that apprentice has moved into my acquired ranks for the skill, so there's more things that I would be able to do in this situation with the skill. And if I were to continue investing, I'd be able to choose a specialization and onward. So each time you invest into these skills, your bonus in using it gets more. You unlock certain additional capabilities that you're able to do at that rank. You unlock the ability to specialize the skill into a particular area. So for example, the society skill can specialize into historian, politician, or scoundrel. And those 3 are mutually exclusive. So once you hit rank 3 in a skill, you face a fork in the road where you choose which of those 3 specialization paths for the skill you're going to take to further advance your character. Now, I'm not actually going to start society at 2. I'm going to go a little bit more broad. So I think I want to have some arcana, because I'm going to be using magic. I think I also want to have a little bit of awareness, so I'm not caught off guard by things. So there I've got my initial skills, and each time you level up after level 1, you have 2 more skill points that you can spend. So there's lots of investment into skills every time you level. Another thing I should say is ability scores. We had those 9 points to spend initially, but every time you level up, you get 1 additional attribute point. So every time you level, you're going to be increasing 1 of your ability scores, not just every 4 levels, not just every once in a while when the system deigns to let you improve your stats, but at every level you get to improve your ability scores, which is, for me, a lot more satisfying. And then that brings us to talents, which is probably the most exciting part of the system and where the character development of Crucible really hits its stride. One of the things that you may have noticed in watching this so far is that I didn't ever choose a class. And that's because Crucible is a classless system. There are no character classes in Crucible. Every character comes from the same general, realm of adventuring capability, and every character can invest in every area of adventuring. But you are, of course, limited in what choices you make, and that you only have so many points you can spend. And so you can't be everything, but you can be anything. And so that's really part of the kind of mantra of character building that we have. Now, I start with 1 talent that I got through my background, but I'm going to go ahead and open up the talent tree here to finish character creation, because the last step is I have 2 talent points that I need to spend before I can reach level 1. So this is the talent tree in Crucible, or talent web if you prefer. What you're seeing here in this circle is the first echelon, the first tier of talents in the system that encompass gameplay between levels 1 and 6. And that's the substance of the first Patreon playtest that we are putting out, is level 1 to 6 player experience. And so that's this first tier of the talent web. Now, as I mentioned, Crucible is about levels 1 through 24, and so there will be the much broader talent web that continues progressing outside of this, with higher tier, higher level talents for later phases of adventuring play. And we have lots of great ideas in mind about what those talents would be. Some of them are just continuations and refinements of talents that you would buy in the first tier. Some of them are entirely new things that change your character in more meaningful ways. But in general, what we focused on for the first playtest is this first ring of talents for levels 1 through 6. So basically, let me talk to you about the anatomy of the talent tree. Each one of these circles is what's called a node, and each node requires certain prerequisites in order to unlock. There's a level-based prerequisite, so like I couldn't purchase anything from this particular node until I reach level 3. There's ability score-based prerequisites. If I want to purchase from this node, I need to have a dexterity of 5. And then there's also a sort of reachability prerequisite in that in order to purchase from this node, I need to have purchased something in at least one other node that connects to it. So you have to kind of build your way through the web of talents in order to reach your objective. Now, what is circled around the origin here are what are called the sort of starter talent nodes. These are the ones that you can take at level 0. In before Path Builder, long before Path Builder, but who knows, maybe someday, or Path of Building rather. So this character is sort of a fire-based sorcerer, so I'm going to go straight over to the intellect quadrant of the tree. Now, one other thing about the anatomy of the talent tree is that each of these nodes, yes, there's a prerequisite for that node, but each node actually has multiple options about what you can purchase at that particular node. So you click on a node and it expands out, and you have the various options that you can take at that particular node. So what you're actually choosing between is the different talents that exist at a particular node. Now I'm going to buy the Flame Rune, and I'll talk a little bit about spellcasting and what that means, but this clearly looks like a sort of fire-based character, so we're gonna purchase the Rune of Flame as a kind of starting spellcraft, and that lights up on the talent tree, so we now own that particular talent. I've got one more to spend. I think I'm going to progress a little bit more into intellect and pick up the arrow gesture, because that will give me a nice like ranged magic option for this character. Although I could of course purchase like a different rune from the same node. I could purchase from a different node. I could get something over down here in strength if I wanted to be like hybrid spellcaster melee. If I wanted to be a spell casting tank character, I could start picking up some shield skills, and I could be like spells in one hand and shield in my other hand. Really, like, this is kind of the world is your oyster, as it were, in terms of like what kind of character concept do you want to be. Now, I'm going to try and make a character that sort of does what this token looks like, so maybe like uses a staff and does fire stuff. So I'm going to take the arrow gesture, which is also part of the spellcraft system, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what that means, like what's a gesture, what's a rune. But I'm going to take that, and so that would be my level 1 build for this character. Because I'm a performer, I have Inspire Heroism, so I can inspire my allies to deeds of greater success. It's kind of like a sort of bard-like experience. I can inspire my allies to do better, and then I can also kind of hurl fire spells all over the place. So that's my level 1 build for this character. Once I've put my talent points in, return to my character sheet, and the only thing that's left to do is to just advance to level 1 and begin your life as an adventurer in Crucible. Now you might want to, of course, have some starting equipment, so I'm going to grab some armor. I'm not particularly dexterous, and so I think I'm going to like actually grab some slightly heavier armor so that I can be protected. Scale mail sounds like a good choice for this character, and because it's not heavy, I won't face some of the penalties that heavy armor does, but it's a heavier armor, so that'll work well for this character. And I'll also, since this is a sort of staff user for weapons, I'm going to grab a mage staff talisman as my weapon. You'll notice that as I put these items onto the character sheet, there's a difference between items that you have, like I might have a rapier, versus an item that I have equipped, which would be the mage staff. Like I can't equip the rapier at the same time because I already have this two-handed mage staff equipped. So if I want to use the rapier, I have to unequip the staff. And so there is like a concept of sort of your inventory, your equipment slots that you can have currently equipped on your character. And you'll see as I change what I have equipped over here on the left-hand column, there's just a change in sort of showing like what equipment that you currently have. One of the nice things about the mage staff is you'll notice under available actions, when my mage staff is equipped, you'll notice a new action shows up there. The Mage Staff is a talisman, and so as a talisman type weapon, it has access to the Recover Focus action, which is something that I can do that other pieces of equipment can't do. So when I have a talisman equipped, I get access to this Recover Focus action that I can then do during combat. So there's all kinds of like little layers of automation there that kind of just help you not have to worry too much about managing your character sheet. You just focus on like what weapon am I using, and then the rest should sort of take care of itself. So that's my level 1 character. Let's see what it's like to fight against something, since we're sort of doing more of like a combat playtest here. I'll just grab a level 1 adversary. We'll grab a pair of hyenas. How about? We'll see how our spellcaster does in the pit of destiny against a pair of hyenas, and I'll talk a little bit about how some of those mechanics work. And then I want to go and make some other characters so you can see like what does it look like for characters to continue progressing, what is it like to build other types of characters in the system. Okay, drink time. All right, so a combat encounter in Crucible involves a number of things. Well, actually, let me pause for a second before I do this and see if there's any critical questions that I should answer. Let's see. Bad Ideas Bureau asks, will the system code for this be open source? Eventually, I think, yeah. I mean, certainly, like, it sort of undercuts the ability to do, like, a private playtest for Patreon if we make it open source right now. And so in order to have the first playtest be Patreon only, the code will be closed source at first, just so that, we can do the Patreon exclusive thing for a bit. But once that is done, and certainly like later in development of the system, I do anticipate this being a fully open source game system. Question from Armax Beats. Are we going to be able to customize the background asset of the talent tree to make it better fit the setting we're playing in? It's not something you can do right now, but that seems like a great feature request, and I agree. If there was like a sci-fi reskin of Crucible, like a sort of that would be important to sort of reskin the talent tree to match. I totally would agree with that. I mean, it is configurable in the API. It's like a configuration variable, but yeah. Cespinar's Recipes asks, how are you going to handle needed balance changes, leave as is, timed supplements, expansion releases, small updates throughout the year? So at first, during the active development and active playtesting process, updates are going to be really frequent. So it might be like weekly patches or every 2 weeks or something like that. Just changes are just going to happen. There's not going to be a lot of like ceremony or structure. Stuff's just going to change. As we get closer to something where it feels like this system is like ready for people to actually play games in, we have to start slowing that down so that we can protect, people's expectations and have a lot more management around like when the system changes. And when that happens, it would probably be something like, named and versioned major releases that would happen every 6 months or something, and those updates would incorporate, balance changes, new functionalities, new items, new taxonomies, all kinds of new stuff, whatever the system needs. There'd be like, oh, it's the big new, Crucible version 3, update, something like that. Question from Kanaimaku. Sorry if I'm butchering that. Are skill trainings level gated in any way? If you wanted to, could you become a master of pathfinding at level 3? They're not level gated, but the cost to improve your skill ramps up for higher ranks. It's not 1 point each rank. The first 2 ranks are 1 point each, but from there it costs 2 points for rank 3, and then 4 points for rank 4, and then 5 or 6 points for the full master rank. So you have to kind of hoard up points if you want to attain those very top mastered ranks of skills. Nath, repeating the repeat, what tier of Patreon will receive access to the Crucible playtest? It's whatever Patreon says. I said on Patreon way back that patrons would get access to a special game system under development, and I just never followed through on that promise, but until now. So it's whatever tiers on Patreon say they get access to that. I think it's tiers 2 and 3. I think it's Hero and Legend. And the $3 champion tier, I think, does not. But it's whatever I promised it would be in terms of the structure of those tiers. Okay, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about... I'll answer one quick one from Chaos Aeon. Can you learn multiple talents of the same node like Flame and Death? Yes, you can. All right, let's talk a little bit about what combat looks like in our example encounter here. Maybe this character will die, maybe they won't. I'm going to put these 2 hyenas and... I need to change the... the character name here. We'll put them into combat, and I click Begin Combat, and you'll notice that there was no initiative roll that I did myself, and that is because the turn ordering in combat is automatically handled by the Crucible system. There is an initiative computation that occurs, but the reason it's not rolled by you manually is because initiative is re-rolled at the top of every combat round, and so this would end up being a drag on combat if this became something that you had to do it yourself each time. Now, we may change that. We may add an optional feature for player characters get to roll their own initiative each round. We can definitely do things like that. But for now, it's totally automated where that initiative roll just happens behind the scenes at the top of every round. Your initiative formula is a 3d8 dice pool, and I'll talk about what the pool is in general in just a moment, plus the average of your dexterity and intellect. Always rounding up when you have an average like that. Now, let's talk about the 3d8 dice pool. If I look at, for example, a skill check like awareness, we have 3d8s in our pool, and each check in Crucible is, in addition to 3d8s, modified by ability, skill, and enchantment. Now, in this case, we have an ability bonus of 3 because awareness is based on intellect and wisdom. We have a skill bonus of 0 because we moved from untrained to novice, which canceled out a penalty that we had to the skill. With novice, we are sort of at the baseline level of competence. And we have no magical enchantment to this. So, not particularly excellent at awareness, but not disastrous at it either. Now, with the dice pool, there's the very important system in Crucible of what's called boons and banes. Boons represent situational advantages to a thing that give you a benefit that makes you relatively better at it. So as we add boons to our awareness check, the dice in our pool upgrade. This first d8 becomes a d12, and then if we keep going, the second d8 becomes a d12, and so on. If we add banes, conversely, these are situational disadvantages that make us less likely to succeed with the thing. So suppose we have 1 bane, our final d8 from right to left in the pool downgrades from a d8 to a d6. I have no reason to be rolling this skill check right now, but suppose I did, just to see the result of it. We'll notice that we actually had quite a good roll. We had the 2 boons on the d12 got us a nice 10 on that result, where we did still pretty well on the baned d6 because we got a 5 there. So overall 23. As a game master, we could of course change, pre-configure or change after the fact what's the difficulty of the skill to determine success or failure. But this 3d8 plus boons plus banes, ability bonus, skill bonus, enchantment bonus, this is the basic dice rolling mechanic that's used throughout the Crucible system. So on your initiative roll, it was also behind the scenes a 3d8 dice pool plus ability modifiers plus any boons or banes or enchantment bonuses that you might have from magic items that can like give you a higher initiative result. There are critical hits. A critical hit occurs when you are more than 6 better than your target threshold. So if you were trying to hit a target that has a physical defense of 17 and you roll a 24, it's a critical hit. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. Okay, so in initiative, we're a little slower this time than the hyenas. So let's talk about what combat looks like for them, and I'll just do like a very quick example to talk to you about some of these mechanics. So the first hyena here, and I'll talk about what an adversary can do, like what makes them different than a character sheet in just a moment. Certainly, like these hyenas are going to have to get to Feryx to try and gobble him up. So the hyena is going to use its action points to move. It has 2 action points because it's a less than level 1 monster, so it can't really even get all of the way there. You'll see this nice feature that when you measure with the ruler in Crucible, it shows you exactly how much AP it would take in order to get to a certain point. And then, we have a free move, which is what's allowing us to get all the way to 12, but that's the best we can do. So I'm going to spend all of my action on getting to there. Same for the other hyena. Maybe we'll kind of try and cleverly flank around a little bit to here and try and get, use some pack hunting tactics there. And then it becomes Feryx's turn. He's becoming menaced by these 2 creatures. We took, as our starting talents, we took the flame rune and the arrow gesture, and so that's probably what's going to be best to use. Now, we have a free move we can do. I'll talk a little bit about movement and free move in a moment, but maybe I'll use that free move to back up a couple spaces and, give myself a little bit of buffer space. That doesn't cost me any action points. And then I can cast a spell using my first action. Now, spellcraft is a really interesting system in Crucible, where every spell in the Crucible system is composed of different components. The 3 primary components of any spell is an arcane rune, a somatic gesture, and optionally a metamagic inflection. The rune describes the kind of essence or element, if you will, of what type of magic is being performed. So in this case, we're using the flame rune. It's going to be fire magic. The somatic gesture is what's the expression of the spell that I'm able to conjure. Now, I know 2 gestures on this character. I know touch and arrow. Touch I kind of knew for free because of learning the flame rune. The arrow gesture would allow me to kind of craft and shape and hurl that fire from a distance in a projectile that travels point to point. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be an arrow. You can make it look like whatever you want. It can be a bolt of flame. It could be a little like line that just bing, you can role play it however you want. But the idea with the arrow gesture is that it's a single target ranged manifestation of the magical effect. So we'll do an arrow of flame as our spell here. And because I want this character to succeed, I, as both the player and the GM, I'm going to say this character did something really cool with their role-playing when they were confronting this hyena, and so the GM says, oh, and you get +1 boon on your next attack because of this cool thing you did. So, maybe this character adds a boon, and that first die becomes a d10. So we're going to cast our spell here. Here comes the roll. Oh, it's not so good. It is a miss. We get the animation. Even the animation itself missed. The joy of Sequencer. So my first attempt at a spell here did not really work so well for me. I have 1 action point left, and so Feryx is going to use that action point on the defend action to gain the guarded condition. And by doing that, I get an automatically added active effect that has the correct duration and automation and everything. So that would be Ferrex's turn, but maybe Feryx will get lucky and both hyenas won't go first next round. If this were some other game systems that you might be familiar with, you would be thinking in this situation, oh crap, these two hyenas are going to come over and eat me before I even get the chance to do anything. May or may not be the case. As we advance to the next round, it in fact is the case that both hyenas remain higher on the initiative tracker than Feryx. Although, by less, it was a close thing. It almost didn't happen. But it is in fact still the case that these mongrels are going to try and eat him. So I don't know if I'll play this out all the way, but let's see. Let's go ahead and bring one of the hyenas in. That's 1 AP. It has 1 action left that it can use to bite. It's going to try and bite it at Feryx. Oh, it misses. Feryx dodges. And maybe he will survive this after all. We'll see. Move over. That's 1 AP. We'll strike with the bite. And, oh, it's a glancing blow only. So 3 damage to Feryx. Thankfully, it would have been worse if it were not for his defended condition. So Feryx is going to get a chance to survive here. He's got not really anywhere to go. He can use his free move to move cautiously in one direction. So 1 space of cautious movement that gets him out of engagement with one of the hyenas. Then we'll do a touch of flame against the one that's next to me. So flame touch, it's a less action cost spell, so I have the chance to perform it at reduced AP. Misses, but it was only 1 AP, so I can keep doing it because I've got all these actions and I've got nothing else to do except try and survive. There we go. 25, it's a hit. So we've got a touch of flame and we deal fire damage to the hyena, and he could keep kind of pumping these flame spells into the hyena as long as he has action and focus left to do it with. Now, I won't play out all of the rest of this, but you sort of get the sense of where this is going, and of course usually it's not just you as one player character against NPCs, but hopefully you're getting the sense that these little rounds of combat are going pretty quickly, they're fun, you're using your actions, everything's automated in terms of deducting your action points, deducting your focus, automatically applying effects. You notice like my defended effect automatically went away when I reached the next round. So yeah, so all of this makes it very easy to quickly play out these sorts of encounters. I'm going to do another example with a different type of character. I'm sure there's lots of questions that I'll try and answer as well. So let me take a couple of questions before I do the next thing. Scrolling up. Question, will character sheets have a spot to track granted boons? So boons aren't something that you keep and take with you beyond the context of a particular role. So you may have boons to a role, but you don't keep those boons around for later or anything. They happen right at the moment that the roll happens, and so there's no need to kind of record that you have them over time. Most boons in the system are like automated in terms of they'll automatically get applied to your roll if the conditions for them are met, and I'm sure I'll show you some examples of that with other characters. Venatus asks, is there any meta currency like Inspiration or Savage Worlds bennies for rerolling? I'd love to do that somewhere in the system, but I haven't committed to it yet. There's a couple of ideas I have, but I didn't want to add it right away and risk overcomplicating or imbalancing the core mechanic. And so for now, the focus is on the core, dice pool based mechanic, and adding something like that in the future that gives you something that you can accumulate and store and then use as kind of like a get out of jail card, I think is probably a good idea that I'd like to see show up in the system at some point. Armax Beats asks about JB2A sequencer stuff. They're modules I have active, but they are also seamlessly integrated. So for example, like this character that has a greatsword, I have those modules active, and when this character who's like level 5 comes over to just absolutely like murk Ferrex with his mega hit. Oh, do I not have animation enabled for the... I thought that was going to be a cool... Oh, I don't have an animation enabled for it. All right, let me do it again. Let's do... Great. So yeah, that should have been already pre-configured, but I guess this character was a little bit dated. So when I do this, yeah, there you go. Wah, cha! You know, you get those animations from Sequencer and JB2A. You get those for free. You don't have to configure them or anything, but if you have those modules installed, it's an automatic module compatibility that Crucible has. Let's see. Glancing blow, question mark. Yes, so this is a great opportunity. I should have done this while I was doing this little combat example. I'm going to pull out a hyena again and go back into my example because I realized that I didn't really talk about what's happening with physical defense and combat. So let me add... We'll just put this back on there. Yeah, so suppose I'm fighting against this hyena. When the hyena attacks Ferrex, I want to talk a little bit about how that attack is resolved. So again, it's a 3d8 dice pool. This bite attack for the hyena is strength-based, so the hyena's strength is pretty good, relatively likely to hit. Yeah, that's a good roll. So this 21 that the hyena rolled to strike is in excess of Ferrex's 19 physical defense, and therefore it's a hit. Now, one of the things that you'll notice in this system is that there's been no damage rolling. There's just like one roll, this is the attack, and the attack misses, or is a glancing blow, or is a hit that deals damage. All of that happens automatically off of the one singular attack roll. And so the way that works is that the formula for damage is you have an overflow amount plus a base damage for your weapon plus potentially an action bonus minus potentially any damage resistance or vulnerability that the target has. So the hyena rolled a 21. The amount of overflow of that 21 relative to the physical defense target of 19, that's the overflow of 2. The hyena's bite is a base damage of 4, and so that's how we end up with 6 piercing as the amount of damage dealt, because Ferrex doesn't have any particular resistance to piercing damage. So that's what happened there. Suppose the hyena attacks again. I'm going to try and conspire for the hyena to miss, so I'm going to add a couple of banes to the attack. Yes, perfect. So the hyena has rolled a 16 this time to attack, which is less than Ferrex's physical defense of 19. This results in a miss, but not just a miss. In particular, in this case, it has resulted in a dodge. Each time that a attack is inferior to your or equal to your physical defense, the mode by which that attack is defended is determined by the system based on the proportion of your defensive components, your defensive breakdown. So Ferrex's physical defense of 19 is based on 13 from the medium scale mail armor, plus 4 dodge, plus another 2 block, where he has 2 block from his mage staff. And so whenever a strike attack misses Ferrex, it could miss based on his armor, it could miss based on being dodged, it could miss based on being blocked. And in this case, the strike actually missed because Ferrex dodged it. And so the nature of the miss is impactful in determining often what types of things can be done in retaliation. So there might be like a reaction you can take when you dodge an attack to counterattack, or it might be that like when you block something with your shield, a nearby ally, there's a talent where like a nearby ally can then use the fact that you blocked with your shield to do something themselves. So the nature of the mode of missing is an important aspect that shows up throughout the system, and will probably show up more as I showcase some other more like melee-oriented characters. So that's a little bit about missing and hitting. Oh, and glancing blows. So glancing happens when you hit when you miss because of armor, and it's not a critical miss. So when you miss, but it's a near miss because of armor, that means there's a window within 6 of the physical defense threshold, where if it's a near miss because of armor, it becomes a glancing blow. So what that means is dodge, parry, and block are 100% avoidance-based defenses, where armor is partially avoidance and partially soak-based defense. So it's a really interesting mechanical balance point, where increasing your physical defense through armor is not one-to-one with increasing it through other means. Like, all else held equal, 1 point of dodge is better than 1 point of armor by a little bit, because dodge doesn't contain that small portion of glancing blows that can happen through armor. All right, let's see if I can take some other questions. Wow, you guys are asking a lot of questions. This is really good stuff. I'll have to try and do a lightning round. Crashlix asks, how does focus regen work? So focus, you noticed when I was casting spells, I was burning through my pool of focus. And so I might eventually run out of focus and not be able to cast spells anymore until recovering focus either between combat or in combat with certain abilities that let me do that. Feryx is using a mage staff, and so one of the things that I could do in a certain turn of combat, like if Feryx were, running out of focus, I could say I'm going to use one action to defend, and that'll give me a defensive buff, and then I'll use the other action to recover focus. And because I'm using a mage staff, I can trade, -2 action for +2 focus via the mage staff. So there's different ways that focus can be recovered. Certainly between combat encounters, there's also ways that focus can be recovered. But focus is kind of while action replenishes each round of combat, focus is something that needs to kind of last you for the whole duration of combat before you can easily replenish it. And certainly the mechanics around focus recovery are ones that are going to be very closely audited and balanced and play tested as part of the feedback that I need to get from all of you. Is the damage the same or is it rolled? I already talked about damage. How easy is it to create monsters? I'm going to spend time on this, Sespinar, but not until later. Let's see. Are there some blood magic shenanigans planned in the talent tree? If yes, which ring? Yeah, I can show you. I can show you what you're looking for. It's down here in the in the toughness quadrant. You're looking for this guy right here. Is the one that you're going to want to head towards. Little fan service for the PoE crew there. Let's see. Question. I think I've answered many of these. How do damage and HP scale up as level goes up? Yeah, Drentel, good question. So your health is going to scale as you level as part of your level up formula. So let's go ahead and advance to level 2. Suppose Feryx gains a level, survives, gets to 2. I've just gained some health and morale as part of advancing to level 2. I also might gain more depending on where I invest my ability point. Like if I were to put my one available ability point from this level into toughness, then I'd get even more health, but I think I'm not going to do that. I think I want to get more damage, so I'm going to go into presence for a little bit more spell power. And then I'll take another rank of awareness, and I'll take a rank of performance. And then in my talent tree, as also part of the leveling up, I get 2 more talents to spend, so I get to keep investing and evolving my character. What would we want to take? This should be sort of a war mage, so Quicken meta magic would be nice, so that I could get 2 arrows off in a single turn, and then have to maybe spend the next turn with recovery for a little bit of burst damage. Or counterspell if I think I'm gonna start coming up against enemy spellcasters. That could be really good. Honestly, so many of these options are really good. I do have quite a lot of presence, so something like Diversionist would be such a good choice. I'm gonna play like this character as sort of a pretty conventional sort of archmage type or arch sorcerer type. Definitely I'm gonna want pyromancer, but I can't get that until level 3. I'm gonna need more intellect when the time comes for that. So that'll have to be an intellect bump if I want pyromancer, which I definitely do. So we'll take the quicken inflection so I can show off how inflections work, and then I'll also take the influence gesture so I have a heavy hitting melee range spell attack. So what that has allowed me to do now that I've reached level 2 is if I was fighting the same hyena, I could, for example, in the course of a single combat round, I could do something like the following. Let's see, suppose it was Ferrex's turn. I have 3 action points available. I could cast a spell. I could do an arrow of flame. That costs 2 action. And that's a critical miss. And now I only have 1 action remaining, but I could do Arrow of Flame again, but this time I could add the quickened inflection. So I could make that Arrow of Flame cost only 1 action at the expense of an additional focus point. So I can speed up the spell casting, and another critical miss as my dice rolling is really woefully bad. So Feryx is sort of doomed to perish at the jaws of the hyena, I think. But you get the idea that like the inflection can add an additional layer of dimensionality to the way that the spell works, and that's an example of what one of those looks like. I'll show what it would look like to maybe continue advancing this character, say all the way to level 6, just so that you can kind of see, suppose I were to play all the way through the play test with this character. I now have much more health, I now have much more morale. My health is scaling up as I'm gaining in level, but my damage is also scaling up because I'm gaining training specializations through the talent tree. I'm gaining additional ability bonuses to my spellcraft by investing into presence and toughness. I'll take a little bit more toughness. I've got 2 more points. We'll do presence 6 and dex. We'll do intellect. We'll do 1 more point of dex. I think that looks probably pretty good. This is what my level 6 build might look like on this character. I can show you what it would look like to, say, specialize the awareness skill, where I can now have enough points to choose my specialization path. We get awareness to rank 3, and I can choose between detective, sentinel, and prescient. We'll definitely go with sentinel for this particular character on awareness, and I'll spend some other points in the skills. We'll specialize performance as well. We'll do artist. Yeah, we'll do the artist specialization. That sounds good. And yeah, so there we go. That's my level 6 build. And then of course talents. This is the fun part. I've got 8 talent points because I jumped up to 6. How would we spend these 8? Well, I'm definitely gonna take Pyromancer. I want to show you how that works. I'm going to take. I haven't talked about signature talents yet. So let's talk a little bit about what the signatures on the talent tree mean. So this outer ring, the outermost ring of the tier 1 talents, you'll notice that they're larger hexagons, not circles. These are called signature talents. And the signature talents all contain options that really more radically transform the way that your character can be played. So things like a poisoner, and I can be all about critical strikes dealing extra poison damage. Or I could be a Spellblade that allows me to weave spells in with my melee weapon attacks. Or I could be an Operator that gets more boons as my health gets lower. Or in this case, I think I'm going to go for War Mage, which is really excellent at counterspell and sort of spellcaster versus spellcaster magical duels. So I'm going to work towards this signature talent on this character, so I need to kind of get over in this direction. So I've got a couple of ways that I might do that. Pulse Gesture's pretty good if I get surrounded by enemies. That could be a good option. Clarify Intent is a really great utility talent that can be great for my party, so I'm going to take that. Take War Mage. Opportunistic spellcraft, that's really great. These are all really good options. I'll do intellectual superiority so that I gain an automatic boon against for spell attacks against creatures that are lower in initiative order than I am. Since I have pretty good intellect, my initiative should generally be pretty good, although compared to those hyenas, it was awful. We'll take another couple rune types, so maybe lightning in addition to flame, and then also kinesis is a great choice so that I have a physical sort of telekinesis ability to inflict physical types of damage with spellcraft. I've got 2 points available left. Ooh, this sounds like very sorcerous. So if I ever get enraged, it allows me to continue spending focus and also deal more damage with my spells at the same time while I'm enraged. Usually if you're enraged, you can't spend focus. So this is pretty cool. Last point, so many tempting options. I think maybe I'll take impetus is very cool. That's a cool one just to demonstrate like how it works. So I'm going to take impetus so that I can show you a little bit of how that like automation works. All right, so this is sort of like what a level 6 build looks like. You can see that I now have a much more expansive sort of constellation of abilities that I've invested in, and I have a lot more that I can do, of course, as a level 6 character than I did at level 1. So if I'm back here in the arena with my hyena nemesis, except now I'm level 6, things hopefully will take a turn for the better. Let me see if I can show a little bit of this in action. So I'm going to start a new combat encounter. Okay, in this new combat encounter, Ferrex has won initiative of the first round of combat, and because of my impetus talent, if you are first in initiative order on the first round of combat, you gain +1 action during your first turn. So this is a really good talent. Like if you are the first to go in combat and you want to kind of have like an alpha strike build where you get to like take down an enemy before they get a chance to act, Ferrex is in this situation now where, now this should have been automated that I get bumped up to 4, little bug fix that needs happening, but Ferrex has 4 action for this first round of combat because of that impetus talent, and also because the hyena is lower in initiative order than Ferrex is, a spell like Arrow of Flame is going to automatically have a boon applied to it, because of that intellectual superiority talent. So I won't necessarily keep showing you the same combat over and over and over, but you can imagine that level 6 Ferrex is going to do quite a bit better against this hyena because his abilities are higher, his attack modifiers are higher. He's going to not have a problem dispatching this hyena at this point. So that is an example of taking a character from level 1 to level 6. I'm going to pause for a moment and take some questions, and then I think I want to just repeat the process with a couple other characters and do some other character builds that show different types of talents and different stuff in the system. Work from the bottom. Question from Armax Beats. Is magic offensive only? Are there going to be utility spells you can build or defensive spells that increase your physical defense, for example? Yes, there are defensive magics. There's spells that can bolster your defenses, whether that's by debuffing or demoralizing an opponent, or ones that benefit your physical defense, your resistances, your ability to dodge directly. For example, one of several examples. Down here there's the ward gesture, which you can combine the ward gesture with any known damage type rune to temporarily gain resistance to a certain damage type. There's other examples as well of defensive magic that lets you play more of a sort of tanking, defensive, sustainability type character. Oh, let me show something cool. I said I would stop showing you just this Ferrex versus the hyena thing, but there's one other thing that I think would be really great to show here. Boom, 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 boom. Sorry. So suppose Ferrex achieves a critical hit on one of his spells, and I'm going to kind of rig that to happen by just stacking up some boons, so it's more likely. Yep, there we go. That was a critical hit. Because Ferrex has the Pyromancer talent, when you critically hit with spells, you inflict the burning condition on critical hit. The burning condition lasts for a round. It deals your intellect score as fire damage to both health and morale. So when this damage is applied to the hyena, boom, we notice that the hyena automatically attains the burning condition. And at the start of the hyena's turn, I'll just advance, there it is. There goes the burning tick of dot damage that happens at the start of the hyena's turn, happens automatically, and then the effect automatically expires at the correct duration. So things like on critical effects is one of the biggest ways that critical hits end up being impactful in the system. Of course, like, critical hits are always going to be more damage because of the way that damage overflow works. So if you roll higher on your attack roll, you're going to deal more damage. So, you know, the more that you roll high and the more that you crit, you're going to deal more damage on your own. But critical hits, the way that they work in Crucible is that they just bring along with them a bunch of different riders. There's a bunch of different effects you can cause on critical hits, and so it's not just about the raw damage, it's about like the secondary condition effect that you can impose when you cause a crit. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, I'm getting a little bit tired of standing. I was sitting for most of the day before this stream, so I've done the first part of this stream from the standing position, but I'm gonna go ahead and lower my desk for a minute and grab a chair. All right, let's adjust this a little bit. Okay, let me take some more questions. Wasp asks, what's the, curious as a creator, favorite thing you found while working with Sequencer? Well, it's a really great module, Wasp. I mean, the thing that I think I like the most is that you have provided a nice API that abstracts away from all of the complexity of needing to like size the video file and like position it so that it does the correct playback of like from origin point to the target. Like your API does a great job of making it easy to define that. So like I basically only have to choose some aspects of the timing and like what animation I want, but you know, for any sort of target to target, Sequencer just does all the hard work in terms of like figuring out how to get the projectile from A to B or what that should look like. And so you know, I just really appreciate not having to have done any of that, and that was really surprising, a pleasant surprise that all just sort of happened automatically. Question from Siren XX. Is there mathematically balanced encounter building, aka the complete opposite of 5ECR? That's the goal, although I won't say that what we have yet is a working balanced implementation of that goal. That is the goal, that encounter building in Crucible should be as simple as add up your character levels, add up your adversary levels, and that should balance at a point of being like the balance point there should be like, if it's equal, it's basically like a sort of moderate to easy encounter, and then if you tip the scale one way or another, the math should work out that you're building a balanced encounter. So if you have like 4 level 3 player characters in your party, then you're just going to grab adversaries whose adversary threat level adds up to around 12 or more than 12 if you want it to be more dangerous. All right, sorry. Just Nig asks, aside from the PoE inspiration, what other games, electronic or TTRPG, would you cite as inspiration? Certainly D&D, Pathfinder, some aspects of other TTRPG, fantasy games, certainly that have inspired this, but there's probably a little bit more D20 roots in this system than there are roots of other game systems, but there's other game systems that use dice pools to great effect as well, and so we've looked at those pretty closely. In terms of CRPGs, obviously you've cited Path of Exile. I'll talk about maybe like Darkest Dungeon a little bit. So one of the things that I haven't shown yet is that Crucible has a dual resource pool framework. So in addition to health and wounds, I haven't talked about what wounds are yet, we've got morale and madness as well. So health represents your kind of physical hardiness and your physical well-being, but you also need to look after your mental health in Crucible as well. And so morale is a measure of your mental health and your ability to withstand stress or trauma. And madness is the kind of permanent accumulation resource component analog to morale that wounds is for health. So suppose our hero here were to get reduced to 0 health and fall incapacitated. If they were to keep sustaining damage after that point, like suppose this horrible boar is just like goring them over and over while they are on the ground, if you sustain damage after the point of being incapacitated, that damage overflows onto wounds. And as wounds accumulate, and wounds can accumulate very quickly if you're incapacitated, so don't let the 2 there necessarily fool you, but if you reach maximum wounds, you fatally perish. And so similarly with morale and madness, as you sustain damage to your morale, if you eventually have your morale break, now for non-player characters, for adversaries, if their morale breaks, they're typically going to want to run away, and this would be up to the game master to portray however they can best do. If the creature has the capacity for self-preservation, it gives you 2 ways to kind of defeat an enemy. So like, for example, if you reduce this boar's morale to 0, the boar becomes broken, and it might, out of a self-preservationary instinct, decide to kind of get the hell out of there. Now, for player characters, if your morale becomes 0, you suffer some other consequences of the broken condition. You're not compelled to run away, but further damage that you suffer to morale during that time becomes an accumulation of madness. And if your madness meter reaches full, you basically lose your mind and agency of your player character, which passes over to the game master to do with what they will at that point. So there's sort of 2 modes of character health, as well as 2 modes of sort of character death, if you will, that you have to try and avoid in Crucible as you protect yourself from threats that are both physical and more esoteric or eldritch in nature. All right, let me scroll real quick to see about question. I'm trying to figure out how I want to tackle some of these questions. Cage asks, it looks like the system uses true bounded accuracy for attack rolls. Can you confirm that? I guess there's a little bit of a question about what you would mean by true bounded accuracy. Certainly, your ability scores, your skill bonus as a character can always improve to the point where your capability to hit a target becomes theoretically guaranteed if the target were not very defensive and if you were very high level. there is the theoretical possibility that like you cannot miss. Whether that's something that we try and counteract in other ways, I don't expect to. I think that is just going to be a reality of the game system, but we'll see. Feel free to clarify your question if there's an aspect of it that you'd like to talk about in more detail. How will the length of combat look? 5e combats get very long at high level. PF2e stays quicker, and some systems like Forbidden Lands are quicker still. I think Crucible's going to be a little bit in the middle because there's a lot that can go on. Like, you have a lot of action, you have a lot of agency, a lot of capability to act, but the actual process of playing out a turn and playing out your dice rolls is very automated, and therefore it's pretty quick, especially once as a game master you know sort of what you're doing with the system. And so I think it's going to be a little bit in the middle. I think it's going to be faster rounds of combat than what you might be used to with D&D or Pathfinder, though, just because of the... I suggest that it may be because of the sort of seamlessness in the way that the action economy is applied and keeping you kind of on the rails of, you know, playing off of the action set that you have. Now, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think with many things, how quickly something plays out always depends a lot on the level of familiarity that you have, that the players at the table have. And so people who are very familiar with the system are going to be able to play through a certain scenario much faster than people who aren't. Sespinar asks, does health heal after fights, but wounds takes much longer, like an extended rest? Exactly correct. So health can be recovered relatively easily through either magical or non-magical means of restoring your body's health, and same with morale, magical or non-magical means of restoring your your happiness. For example, like soothe, you can make a performance check to increase the morale of your nearby allies, for example. There's abilities that provide healing both to body and mind throughout the talent tree, throughout the magic system. Some of them are magical, some of them are non-magical. But your longer-term resources of wounds and madness are ones that persist after a fight, and not just throughout the day, but over the course of your adventuring life, as it were. Like, you'll always be able to gradually heal your wounds, but healing wounds is not something that can be done quickly. And so, sometimes like a period of rest is what your character needs in order to protect themselves, from venturing too close to the edge. Chesser says, with these two kinds of health, it really means you can have very different specific builds, like mental tank versus physical tank. Yeah, absolutely. And there's abilities like, for example, a lot of abilities like in the wisdom portion of the tree where, irrepressible spirit, you like get automatic morale regeneration at the start of your turn, or mental fortress where you can, be more withstanding to psychological damage that more frequently affects morale rather than health. There's a lot of things that can change what it means to be like a tank in terms of, are you more of like a resistance against spells and resistance against mental strain, or are you more the conventional like wade into a crowd of enemy combatants and just fend them all off? DJ Lulo asks, scroll on me, where to go? I saw a defensive calculation for the PC when downed. Is that only armor that is calculated? Yes. So when the PC goes down, you become incapacitated, and when incapacitated, you're you lose. Now, this should have been automatic, I thought. Now, yeah, I think there's a little bug here in the code. I'll have to look into why that is. You're supposed to lose your ability to dodge or block when you're incapacitated in this way. So the physical defense calculation should have adjusted, and in fact, it looks like it didn't right now from the incapacitated condition. So I'll have to look into that little bug fix, but it should have, yes. There is some interactions between like the conditions that you have and your ability to physically defend from harm. Comment from Lutherian, it's interesting to see the VTT leverage to allow for interesting systems that might be too fiddly for handling at a physical table. That's a great way to describe what kind of we're going for with this. Not that we're deliberately trying to design it to be fiddly, but we're trying to lean into areas where, that type of design could end up, working here where it might not really be ultimately all that enjoyable in other contexts. All right, let's make our sort of dwarven paladin type character here. Maybe acolyte. We'll start as an acolyte and get the spirit rune for free for this paladin. Someone give me a good dwarven name for this character. I'm gonna want toughness and presence. That's gonna be like my main jam. I'll just take some strength 2 for melee, a little bit of wisdom. That looks about right. Skills, we'll take intimidation and religion. And talents, we start out with the spirit rune. I'm going to want some melee, good old-fashioned melee combat. I'll take bulwark for some shield defenses, and I'll take... I'll take martial weapon training just so that I'm better with my strikes. So I'll have like a kind of 3-way progression with this character. And then starting weapons and armor, we'll do a warhammer and a shield. And we'll do armor. We'll do some heavy armor, like splint mail. It's bulky, so I'll be slow until I get some talents to support that. So that would be like a level 1 sort of paladin type character. I have like a little bit of spell casting because I have the spirit rune. I've got some shield ability with bulwark and martial weapon training, so I'm pretty good with my weapons and shield. Be a good looking level 1 sort of paladin character. Suppose we took this same character to level 6. I'd take more presence and I'd take more strength and I would take a bit more toughness and maybe 1 more strength. Why not? We'll be strong. Let's talk about some fun talents we could take if we were building like a level 6 paladin character. So we got a Zealous Smite, which is something that I can do to transform my damage into deadly radiant damage. That's a pretty good sort of paladin-esque ability. Ooh, I could take this sort of vow. I need more wisdom for that. Testudo for really good shield defense. The ward gesture for like defensive spell casting. Dreadlord. We'll be a blackguard instead of a paladin. Why not? Why be virtuous when we can be purposeful? That sounds good. Cadence will be really good. Offensive talent. Shield charge for sure. Definitely want that. Maybe a second wind so I can heal myself. Shield bash when I block. That's really powerful. And then maybe concussive blows so that if I crit with a bludgeoning weapon, I can make the target staggered. I've got 1 more point. Strike gesture seems like a great way to use my spirit rune if I need to. So there I've got like a really sort of offensive dreadlord paladin type character. This would be a really fun character to play. I can show a little bit about like how some of these abilities would work. So sorry if I'm ignoring chat and the character names that you're giving me for this character. So this character is going to be relatively slow in initiative because they're using bulky armor, and I didn't take the feat that I probably should have taken for that. But you can imagine on my turn, there's a lot of things I can do. For example, this shield charge. This is a good way for me to show you what like an AoE ability looks like. When you use an AoE ability in the ability card where you enter your boons and banes, there's a little button to place your template. And so here for an AoE ability, I'm prompted like lay out the charge path that I'm going to follow with my shield charge here. So suppose I like charge straight through these two hyenas. I'm going to make a charge attack against both of them. One of them ends up being a crit, and so as I like charge through, I've crit this second hyena. You notice from my concussive blows talent that it's automatically staggered now, so it has less action points. Basically, this character would kind of roll through and just demolish these low-level enemies, but using some pretty fun abilities. I'll show you how cadence works. That's a fun one. I'm just skipping turns just to show you some of the highlights of what this character's abilities can do. So Dreadlord is the signature talent that I took, which gives me Formidable Presence. When I use Formidable Presence, it gives me a pulse AoE like this that's going to hit every creature in the area. It allows me to deal target the willpower defense and deal void damage to morale. So you can tell, like, with the Formidable Presence of this Dreadlord, I've just intimidated and broken the will of one of these hyenas that would presumably then try and like run away from me, because I've just sort of caused it to panic and just want to get away. And then I can also show like we'll do like a cadence attack against the other hyena. I'll refund myself an action so I can show what that's like. Cadence is a pretty deadly like wombo combo one-handed attack where you make a sequence of strikes that gain accumulating boons against your target. So if I do like a cadence attack, I get lots of nice dice rolls against this hyena, and I just like blast it into oblivion with my warhammer, so it's down. Obviously this is like a higher level character against some lower level enemies, and so I'm not having too much trouble putting them down. But yeah, lots of really fun stuff that like a tanking kind of paladin smiting type character could do. You know, I of course have this Zealous Smite, which lets me make an attack deadly, which gives it an extra modifier. Oh, and I critical hit against it, so that's like nice 26 radiant damage that just sort of smote this hyena down. Yeah, so lots of like great kind of little flexibility and different gameplay styles that you can have with that type of character as well. So that's another example. All right, let me see if you guys gave me a name for this character. I don't know if anyone gave me a name. Rusty Buff Body, Macho Hardpack, Harry McHammer. Oh, you guys are killing me. Urist McBeard Fist. Sure, Urist. Why not? Let me see if I can take some questions. Lugs asks, will marshals have lots of combat options similar to 4E D&D, or is it marshal caster divide going to be an issue? Hopefully this was a nice example of some of the like fun sort of melee attacking talents that a martial character can have. We can build another martial character real quick, do like a quick speed build, and let's do sort of a, let's do a rogue. I think there's like there's sort of this like assassin looking sort of poisoner type character here. So we'll do just human and urchin, maybe get diversionist for free. That's a good talent. I'll go ahead and drop in, we'll do mostly dexterity, a little toughness and intellect, and then maybe just 1 point in each of these so I'm not too weak. A little more dex, maybe one more int. Good. I like it. That looks like a good starting spec. We'll do some deception. We'll do some stealth. And so like a rogue talent. So one of the things that I don't think I explicitly mentioned to you all, but maybe hopefully came through here, is that the talent web is organized according to your ability scores. So the dexterity quadrant of the talent tree is down here to the bottom right. So if I'm being like a mostly dexterity and intellect type character, I'm going to be mostly progressing over in this direction. So I'll take dual wield, and I'll take flurry maybe for like a nice dual wield attack chain, and then that would be like my level 1 build. And then if I get to level 6, then I'd do something like, well, keep boosting dexterity, boost intellect a little bit more, a little more toughness, little presence, done. Talent tree for level 6 might look something like this. We'll take skirmisher so I can move in and out of combat more freely. Bloodletter, so I can deal some extra damage over time when I crit. Counter evade is good because I'll dodge a lot, so I'll take 2 points from that talent tree. I think eventually I want to go for this Poisoner build because that's kind of what's shown in the character artwork, sort of poison daggers, so I'm going to work my way over there. I think I'll go via Preternatural Instinct. So to get there, I'll take Finesse Weapon Training, Strike first, Opportunist would be really good too, Preternatural Instinct, and Poisoner. And then I might also take Combat Medicine, could be good, so I have a little bit of ways to heal. I could take Fainting Strike is fun. Weak Points is good, extra damage to an exposed target. Yeah, I think that's that looks pretty good. 1 more point available. Defensive roll or tumble through would be good. Yeah, so here's sort of like a Poisoner type dual wield rogue type build. So let's get some equipment for them, and I'll show you what some of their abilities can look like. Just do 2 daggers, keep it simple. So let's talk dual wield for a minute. I showed you sword and shield a little bit, although I didn't show how some of the shield counterattack abilities work, but let's show dual wield a little bit. Wielding 2 weapons largely involves effective use of the dual wield talent, which allows you to make an offhand strike once per turn for free if you've performed a basic strike with your main hand. So what that would allow this character to do is I can make on my turn, and I should get added to combat against my hyena test dummies. Now, my rogue has very good initiative here because I have invested into both intellect and dexterity, so my initiative is very high. I have, strike first, which lets me get boons for free against an enemy that's lower in initiative than I am, which is very great. That's very helpful. So for example, suppose the rogue makes a strike attack against this first hyena. You notice that boon to the first D10 automatically applied. It's a critical hit. That applies the bleeding effect that I got from my Bloodletter talent, so bleeding damage on piercing weaponry that I've just done. Because I did a regular strike with my main hand weapon, I can now do an offhand strike completely for free. So it's a way to get more attacks. So that's another crit. This rogue's taking care of business. You notice that when it becomes that hyena's turn, it's just going to expire from bleeding damage. The other thing the rogue can do, I took the Poisoner capstone. So suppose I spend 2 action to apply Poison Blades. Those Poison Blades last for 6 rounds, I think, and while I have the Poison Blades up, suppose I'm attacking this target. We'll see if I can crit again so that I can show you what it would be like. Yes, indeed, I can. The Poison Blades here would you get both the Bloodletter damage over time from bleeding, as well as the Poisoner damage over time from poison, both applied on that critical. So this would be a character that's going to stack up a lot of damage over time effects with poison and bleeding, and then use that to kind of when it becomes this hyena's turn, the poisoning and the bleeding kind of take care of the rest. So this would be sort of a more damage over time heavy build that this Poisoner style rogue is playing, but sort of different look than the way that some other melee characters are working. I'll also show you the Flurry ability that I took. So Flurry's fun. It's a dual wield talent that you can only use if you are wielding 2 melee weapons. So it requires you to be wielding 2 weapons. It's a sort of 1-2 strike with both, and then if both of them hit, you get an extra 3rd strike with your main hand weapon for free on top of it. So it's either a 1-2 or potentially a 1-2-3, depending on how well you roll. So here against the hyena, I roll well. I hit with all 3 of my flurry. cha-cha-cha. It'd be great with Sequencer to kind of make that more of like a 3-hit animation. Obviously, I haven't done that yet, but that's an example of flurry and dual wielding. I know I'm going like a little bit fast here. I'm just trying to show you all a little bit like of diversity and versatility and different play styles of like how different characters would function in combat. You guys giving me a name for this rogue? Looking for a rogue name. All right, let me see if anyone has some questions that I can answer before I build another character. Question from Bad Ideas Bureau: are all damage over time effects start of the turn? Yes, so that's the current convention, is that damage over time effects tick on your turn at the start of your turn before you go. So if you're carrying a damage over time wound, that damage is going to apply to you on your turn right before you act. Sageface55 asks, are there abilities that can bypass certain defensive stats, like some things that can't be dodged or armor piercing? Great question. That's something I've been toying around with for some certain talents, but I haven't actually implemented any examples of that yet. But conceptually, that's the type of gameplay mechanic that I would be looking at, is like a certain attack, but like it can never be blocked or can never be parried, or a spell that like attacks your physical defense but can't be dodged. Something like that is an interesting opportunity to play with some different mechanics. Thank you, Ripper. That's really thoughtful. You say it looks great, can't wait to play in the system. Is it going to launch with one or more campaigns? Certainly, like if development goes according to plan and if people are really enjoying it, we will definitely add like some adventure content that you can play for the system. So I don't have any promises to announce in terms of campaigns, but like the goal for the system is that the base Crucible system is going to be available for free for everybody, and so we're not going to make any money off of the Crucible system unless we make some like content for the Crucible system. So the goal is to make the system available for free, and then to publish some certain like adventures and stuff that you could buy to play using the system. That would be kind of like the business model side of what we're doing here. But the system itself, the plan is completely free, available for anyone who wants to use it. Sapient AI asks, will we be able to completely exchange trees for different characters, like give biological characters one tree and artificial characters another one? I love that idea. That's very cool. Currently, that is not supported, but conceptually, yes, it could be supported, because there's not a requirement that there be one and only one talent tree. At the end of the day, talents are just like items that your character has in their character sheet. The talent tree is just the interface by which you're allowed to choose which talents you get. Like, the system prevents you from just opening the talents compendium and just like dropping talents on your sheet. You have to add those talents through the talent tree. But the talent tree is just a UI UX. It's just a way to make sure that you choose for your character sheet only the talents that you should be allowed to choose. And so ultimately, like, you could have different talent trees for different characters, for sure. It could certainly be possible. Question from Adrian Parsons: are there magic or non-magic actions abilities that can remove those damage over time effects? Yes, there are. You have spells and sort of heroic non-magical abilities that can be used to sort of purge yourself of certain conditions. Bearded, let's see, someone says Joe Snake's question is very important for the system going forward. What was that question? Question from Combat Tactics perspective. Divinity Original Sin 2 also has this 2 health bar system, and it kind of generates an issue on character team building where if your team has a split of morale and health damage sources, they don't interact well with each other, and whoever puts the enemy down to 0 first makes the efforts of the other type useless. How does that work on Crucible? Great question. I also experienced that frustration with DOS2, and so I think that what I would say is that in Crucible, you really don't have you're very unlikely to have a character that like only does morale damage or cannot ever do morale damage. I think it's more common that every character would have some tools that they could use to do some health. Well, maybe that's not entirely true. It's not necessarily so uncommon. Like this rogue character doesn't really have any way as built right now to deal morale damage. So this rogue character would be doing only health damage. But these other two characters both have a way to deal morale damage. And so I think for the most part, you have that flexibility, and it's not that like you have to defeat every enemy that you're up against using the same way. So like suppose these three heroes are up against, like 6 different hyenas. Like the Dread Knight guy over here could kind of come in and use Formidable Presence to kind of like scatter the morale of, all 6 of these hyenas, like, so he, gets Formidable Presence on all of these guys and their morale is getting drained, while the rogue's like, well, I'm gonna like flank around here and get to this guy and like take down these hyenas with my daggers. Like you can have a mix and match strategy. Like you don't have to always win with morale, you don't have to always win with health. You have sort of multiple paths to victory against different creatures. There's also a lot of like rock paper scissors in terms of you're not always going to be fighting like a bunch of the same enemy. You're sometimes going to have like, oh, we've got like some of the hobgoblin fighters, and then we've got some of the, there's like a witch doctor in the back, and then there's some of these archers further back behind them, and then there's a big ogre. And you're fighting against a group of enemies like this that's more varied and versatile. Soaking through the ogre's health pool and prodigious fortitude is not going to be so smart. But the caster over here who's really good at hurling spells can say, well, I'll take the ogre because I can use, lightning arrow against the ogre all day long, and that ogre is not going to be able to withstand. This character sucks. Therix, you suck. My first character, and you're just worthless. I was like, you're not going to be able to withstand my, you're not going to be able to save against reflex, and then he did. But conceivably, like Ferrex's spells that attack reflex defense, if you knew that the ogre was like not so, it was a little clumsy, like that would be a tactically like good way to sort of rock paper scissors divide up responsibility for like who's gonna take on like which enemy. Oh, here's another pair of ones. Yeah, Ferrix is cursed. We're just gonna have to bench that character forever. Question from, I don't know, Jasnig, if that answered. I do agree with you though. Like if it's your whole party against one boss and like half your team members are trying to deal morale damage and half your team members are trying to deal health damage, I think maybe that's a case where you as a party should try and apply some better tactics and pick your way that you want to face the combat, rather than kind of just everyone doing whatever they want. Let's see, Sageface has a comment. One potential solution to multiple health bars thing could be improved by having different downsides applied to characters as their health or morale goes down, so you can mainly focus on health, but having morale lowered makes combat easier. Yeah, that's sort of basically how some things do work, and many of the conditions that are applied through things that affect morale are also ones like disoriented. If you're disoriented and you have a penalty to your use of focus actions, then like there's things like that, like those conditions, those debuffs that often can make combat a lot easier without necessarily being like your sole path to victory. Any support for non-lethal physical damage? Yeah, Rather X, that definitely needs to be supported, because certainly there needs to be a mechanical framework in the system for like subduing someone non-lethally. I haven't written any rules for that yet. I'm not sure what it's going to look like exactly, but it's probably there's going to be something to do with that specifically. That's not something that I've written yet for this stage of system development. You are correct, though, that is something that's likely necessary. Punmaster DS, are there plans for companions that advance alongside a PC, like Beastmaster specialization node? Yes, great comment, great question. So, there is, for example, a Beastmaster specifically, signature node that gets you a permanent animal companion that progresses alongside you. There's also things like Conjurer, so I can show how Conjurer works a little bit. Conjurer can use the gesture of creation to manifest more than one creation at a time instead of just one. And so that's pretty cool. I'll make a little mage right now that's using Conjurer as an example. We'll make this little gnome wizard guy our Conjurer. He can be a scholar. So I'm going to need intellect and wisdom for this particular build. Always need a little bit of toughness, maybe a little bit of presence for focus. Take a little bit of everything, but mostly wisdom and then mostly intellect. And then I'm going to want some arcana and maybe some... how about diplomacy? Why not? So for conjuration, I'm really going to use the creation gesture at low tier. There's higher tier conjuration gestures, but creation is the one that I'm going to want early game. So I'll grab that as my level 1 build so that I could start summoning right away. And then I'll just go ahead and take this character to level 6 so you all can see what that would look like at a little bit higher level as well. I'll just skip over skills for now. Yeah, so I'm going to take a couple of different runes. I'll take both Ice and Earth. I'll take Rhyme Caller, and I'll go ahead and pick up the Conjurer Capstone. And then over on this side of the tree, I definitely want the Arrow Gesture. Maybe the Fire Rune as well, so we have a couple of different elemental options. This would be a really good example of taking more than one signature node. I've only showed examples so far of taking one signature, but you can take 2 signatures per tier. So I can actually take 2 signature nodes if I want to. In this case, I think I do. I'll take Steadfast and then Rune Warden, because I'm taking a bunch of different runes on this build, and that's going to give me passive resistances for those different runes that I've taken all those elemental runes for. One of the cool things you'll notice about the signature node that I took Rune Warden here is it's unlocking it by progressing up the wisdom arc. Rune Warden is a wisdom toughness hybrid signature. Unlocking Rune Warden through this wisdom arc has warped me over to the toughness side of the tree over here as well. So by unlocking this signature, it's twinned where it appears here and here. Same with Conjurer, of course. This is the same Conjurer node that appears on either side. Conjurer is Wisdom Intellect. So by unlocking one of these signature nodes, I can warp over to the opposite side of the tree and continue progressing from there if I wanted to. So I'll take like the Ward Gesture, for example, for some defensiveness that I can branch off here. And I might also take like... let's see, 1 point available. What options? Let's go with Inspire Heroism, so I can inspire my summoned minions to do great things. That sounds good. So my Conjurer character here, token's a little bit big for a gnome. Do something like this. Suppose this Conjurer character were part of the party of 4 that's battling against, all of these guys. I'm just going to put everyone into a combat encounter. Oops. All right, I'll skip over the Hobgoblin Witch Doctor's turn and just go straight to Conjurer, who, rolled pretty well on initiative. So our Conjurer character here, who also should probably have some basic armor and some equipment. How about I'll just do a mage staff on this character as well, although I know I already showed what that looked like. Well, no, we'll do a short sword and a arcane orb. Why not? So our conjurer on their turn might use the say like the creation of frost spell to manifest this icy creation. Now, I need to add a little bit of automation for like having it auto spawn here, but for example, what that's going to have happen is like you get your little creation of ice that you've conjured that is going to be able to act as well in the combat tracker. Now, this needs to be set up so that it automatically pops in at just below your initiative is the way that this is supposed to work. Now, I think there's a little bug right now where it doesn't do that, but this like automation of the creation gesture is something I still need to do. But like the conjurer could say, summon this little ice elemental and then use my remaining action on inspire heroism to, make my little elemental friend and my rogue here get like a buff that's going to give them a boon to their next attack. So this elemental can itself cast like icy touch spell. It has like an icy claw that it can use to attack. It's a minion of half your level, so this creation of ice is like a level, well actually this character is now level 6, so this would be a level 3 minion. So he gets more health, more damage, and as the conjurer, I couldn't do it this turn because I wouldn't have had enough action yet, but you can imagine like it's back to his turn again next time. The Conjurer Capstone signature allows you to maintain more than up to 3 creations at the same time, where normally the creation gesture only permits 1 creation at a time. So, the Conjurer might say, oh, in addition to my icy creation, I'm going to have a creation of flame as well. I'm just sort of building my little like elemental army here. And so that would be a very different playstyle that you would be using your elementals, conjurations to kind of do your dirty work for you. All right, let me pause for a second and see if anyone has questions about like, I showed a couple of different things there. I showed that like you can have more than one signature talent. I showed that your signature talents can warp you over to the opposite side of the talent tree. I showed that, we have summoning and companions, like we've got the Beastmaster Capstone signature talent, we've got the Conjurer signature talent. You can get these little creations that are your minions to serve you, whether they're temporary as these are or permanent like the ones that you would get through the Beastmaster signature. Josnik asks, do you have some spoilers, ideas of how it will look beyond level 6 and at very high levels? It seems like a level 6 character already has a lot of stuff to play with. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. You already have a lot of stuff to play with. Certainly you'd have just more options, more talents, more things you can do, more advanced equipment, more consumables that you can use, more crazy things, stunts that you can pull. And a lot of abilities as well that might benefit you outside of strictly combat. Like this first playtest is obviously very focused on like the combat system, but your mechanics outside of combat for exploration, for socialization, we've got ideas in mind for those systems as well. And some of your talents will have kind of dual purpose where they might be useful in combat in one way, but they also might have sort of non-combat uses in other ways as well that can really support you outside of combat. Question from FML2. Are there going to be hard-coded boons for positioning like flanking or high ground? Yes, those are supported and will also be automated, although flanking is not currently automated. I still need to do a little bit of coding to make that happen. I'm actually thinking I might work on that as part of my like free Project Friday thing for our stream tomorrow, so maybe by this time tomorrow you might see flanking in action in Crucible. It's not going to be too hard to get that working in an automated way. But I can tell you about how movement and flanking and positioning works in the combat rules section. So I'll skim over some of these rules and talk about free movement. So one of the things that I showed is that everyone gets a free move once per turn. There's certain things that can make your free move better, or there's certain things that can actually cause you to lose the ability to have a free move. So for example, suppose this rogue has the slowed condition. If I'm slowed, then my move is going to cost me 1 action. I don't have that free move anymore. Or if I was prone, for example, I have to spend an action to stand up from prone. I lose the ability to have that free move once per turn. I have to use a move in order to get up from the prone position. So there's things that affect your abilities to free move. Engagement and flanking. Each character has what is called an engagement score. Now, for most characters, your engagement is 1, which means how many enemy characters do you feel like are you well equipped to fight against at the same time? For most heroes, by default, it's 1. Like, this hero can be fighting this hobgoblin and, you're fully engaged with just 1 opponent. But you can boost your engagement beyond that, so certain characters who are especially good at tanking or want to be like frontline fighters, they're going to want to have a higher engagement threshold. There's ways that you can get that. For example, like in this section of the talent tree, I could have taken Hold Fast, for example, under Toughness 4. If I took Hold Fast, I would boost my engagement by +1, allowing me to take on more foes at the same time. And if I had that, then I could be in combat with both of these hobgoblins, no problem. I don't mind that it's 2v1. I'm fine with that. Now, suppose my engagement is 2, because suppose I did take Hold Fast. Let's just imagine that to be the case, or instead of imagining that to be the case, I'll just swap Testudo for Hold Fast. Imagine my engagement is 2, and then say like another hobgoblin fighter joins the fray and comes in to join me in melee. Flanking is determined based on how many opponents are there threatening you in your engagement in excess of your engagement score. So if my engagement score on this character was just 1, then I would have 2 creatures that are adjacent to me beyond what my engagement score supports. That means that there would be flanking 2 in this situation, and any attack that these hobgoblins make against this dwarf would have 2 boons, 1 for each tier of flanking. If you had even another hobgoblin and you start to be really surrounded, then you have 3 that are flanking if your engagement is only 1. But since I have Hold Fast, my engagement on this character is 2, so even with 4 hobgoblins here, there's only 2 boons from flanking, because it's the number of adjacent enemies minus your engagement is like the extent to which you are flanked. There's other talents in the tree that affect this in terms of like how easily you can become flanked, or when you're able to, utilize that flanking to your benefit, or you can get extra boons from flanking, or you can make it harder for yourself to be flanked independently of your engagement score. But that's some basic rules around the way that flanking works, and that will be fully automated in terms of adding those boons from flanking automatically when you are appropriately surrounded. Another aspect of movement that's important to know about combat has to do with disengagement. So in this situation, if engagement is 2 on this character, one of these hobgoblins can just run away from combat, no strings attached. If you think about the sort of like opportunity attack that exists in 5e, that concept does exist in Crucible. We call it a disengagement attack. And that disengagement attack can only occur if you are not fully engaged. So even if this hobgoblin fighter leaves, the dwarf is still fully engaged with engagement 2. So this hobgoblin fighter can leave because these 3 hobgoblins already have the dwarf fully engaged. Another hobgoblin could even leave, could go over here and start attacking the spellcaster, dwarf can't make a disengagement attack about it because your engagement's 2 and there's 2 other guys still here with you. But then if this one were to leave and say, I'm going to go get that summoner, suddenly at that moment you'd be like, wait a minute, this dwarf gets an opportunity to make a disengagement attack against the hobgoblin because if that hobgoblin leaves, the dwarf is no longer fully engaged. So that's some of the rules around like attack of opportunity, flanking, engagement. They're all kind of related together in this system. And disengagement attacks you make with added boons as well. So they're very dangerous if you have the opportunity to do them. Let me pause for a minute and see if there's any questions about that. Do all 4 enemies get those 2 boons? Yes. So if all 4 hobgoblins are surrounding this dwarf, it doesn't matter that only 2 of them are in excess of the dwarf's engagement. All 4 of them would get +2 boons. So it doesn't matter like which ones are the ones that are engaged. It's just any one of the 4 who's participating in that kind of overload gets the benefits of the flanking action. Bearded Jotun, can you only engage one enemy or all enemies in reach? Whether it's just one or all depends on your engagement score. So if this dwarf hypothetically had an engagement score of 4, maybe they've got the holdfast talent that gives +1, they've got the talent over in the wisdom side of the tree that gives +1, and they've got a magical shield that the magical effect bonus on their shield gives them +1 engagement. You could have an engagement of 4, and this dwarf could be like, I don't care that there's 4 enemies attacking me. I'm totally comfortable in this situation. And so, yeah, there are characters that could basically, like, engage all comers if you had a high enough engagement score. Question from Bad Ideas Bureau, will there be automated prompts for reactions such as disengagement attacks? Yeah, I haven't, again, so this is sort of part of the like automation of flanking and disengagement. I still need to do that, but basically what I intend to do is when someone moves out of engagement and that move would create the opportunity for a disengagement attack, you'll notice that each time there's a move, each time someone moves, that move shows up in the chat log, right? So on this chat card where there's a move, if this were a move that would trigger the possibility of a disengagement attack, I might have a portion of the chat card that says like disengagement ! Or something that's like a button to like make a disengagement attack if applicable, or maybe like a scrolling text notification like disengaged ! To like notify that. I agree, like this is the kind of thing like I want the software to remind you that this is something that happens, so you don't have to necessarily like always remember it yourself. Like you'll be presented with the opportunity to make that disengagement attack if you are able to. Phoenix Manashir, I'm afraid you would not be able to import characters from D&D Beyond. This is not D&D. This is a different game system, but and I don't have any plans at this point to have an official like 5e to Crucible conversion tool, but I know that something like that could be helpful. And so once we talk a little bit about adversary building mechanics, it'll be interesting to brainstorm whether something like a convert your 5e monster into Crucible could be easily supported. It would be interesting to explore. Adrian Parsons asks, are there reach mechanics? If so, do they affect disengagement attacks? There are reach mechanics. There are certain abilities that have a longer range. There's also certain weapon types that have a reach property. So for example, we can have like a halberd that has a reach property and is able to engage an enemy that is more than 1 square away. There's also talents like over on the dexterity side of the tree, like lunge, for example, where you can basically like dart forward and make a strike against a more distant foe and then return back to your original position. That's not strictly speaking like a reach, but there are abilities like that have more, melee range in their application. All right, let's see. FML2 asks, are there any pugilist-like talents that focus on unarmed combat? Great question. Let's build a martial artist, shall we? That sounds like a good thing to do. Give the people what they want. I don't know if there's one of these hero tokens that's particularly well suited for like an unarmed playstyle or not. Maybe not necessarily, but I'll just choose this sort of warlock, and we can pretend that it doesn't have this purple sword. So suppose we're an orcish. We were a physician before we became an adventurer. Yes. We'll take some wisdom, take a little bit of strength, take a little bit of dexterity, splash of toughness, maybe another wisdom, another dexterity, and we'll leave presence and intellect low, and I'll take maybe one more strength. Okay, let's build some talents for this sort of martial artist type character. So, okay, over here on the strength quadrant, I'll start with unarmed weapon training. I'm also going to grab over here the martial artist feat, which is hybrid strength wisdom. That'll do for level 1. I'm just going to go ahead and bump this character up to 6. I'm going to eventually head towards this signature, Monk, although there's others that could work well for a sort of pugilist type playstyle. I'm going to go for battle focus. It's really strong. Patient deflection. Oh, I need to invest my attributes that I would have had from level up. We'll do just a little bit of everything. I'll just put 2 points. I'll bring my presence and intellect up to 2 so my saving throws aren't completely woeful. Yeah, we'll take patient deflection and then monk. This monk is mirrored over here in dexterity, so this kind of warps me over to this side of the tree, which is great because I'm going to then use that to take defensive roll and unarmed block. Oh, I need 4 toughness for unarmed blocking. I definitely would want that, so I'm going to say we'll drop strength to 5 and toughness to 4 so I can get unarmed blocking. That's really nice. Thick skin would be really good here. Let's do counter evade because I'm probably going to dodge a lot, and flying kick is a fun little like movement ability that could work well here. I think I'll want, so monk gives me this kind of like double punch flurry of blows type ability, so I don't really need that. But I think I will take, let's see, there's a couple good options here. Step gesture could be good. Ooh, gladiator could be good, but I don't have enough toughness for that. So yeah, I'll do planned defense, that's good. And I'll take wrestler might be pretty good. Gives me the ability to kind of restrain a foe that I've sort of grappled. So yeah, we'll do that. And I could, of course, change it up if need be, but here's a sort of martial artist type character. Now again, you'll have to ignore the sort of glowy purple sword in their hands, but I'll show you a little bit of like what this character could do. They can kind of have all kinds of fun toys, like, so flying kick, for example, move forward 2 spaces in a straight line. Like if I were here, I could do my sort of flying kick against this target as a combat initiator. The other thing I can do is my sort of lightning fast focus spending double punch, sort of a 1-2 quick flurry of punches. This character would be able to have a lot of good physical defense, lots of dodge, and so what I could show you is, like, suppose it's the Hobgoblin fighter's turn, and this Hobgoblin fighter, you know, attacks the monk. What I'm going to do is try and wait to dodge. There it is, first attempt, I dodge. What that allows the monk to do is to spend a reaction on counter evade. So I can spend focus on, when it's not my turn, as a reaction. When the condition is you dodge an incoming melee strike, a reaction after dodging an attack, I can respond with a strike of my own. So I can immediately retaliate against that target. Oh, I was targeting myself. Shouldn't have done that. Let's reverse. That's a cool thing. I didn't show you about Crucible yet. If you've misplayed anything, like this counter evade, I targeted myself by accident, and the system was too stupid, so it let me do that. It probably shouldn't have. I confirmed this. I applied this damage to the wrong target, to myself. I can just right-click on it as a GM, reverse. It just completely undoes the effect. I can get rid of that, and I can ignore that misplay, go back and do my reaction again, this time targeting the correct enemy. And I'll do it again just to hit, so I can show you how that how that apply reverse. So when I confirm the results of the attack, it applies, you saw like the focus cost applied to myself and the health that I did applied to the target. If I reverse it, both of those things reverse. You can see what got undone. Really easy to take a step backwards if you accidentally played an ability the wrong way. That's I think a really useful feature that the system has. That reversal also applies to things like active effects as well. So consider Ferrex. Well, I don't want to demo anything with Ferrex because he's just going to fail, but let me try and get Ferrex to demo the Pyromancer fire damage over time thing. So suppose Ferrex hopefully crits against this Hobgoblin. Nope. I'm trying to rig it by giving him maximum boons. Come on, Ferrex, give me a crit. Give me a crit. No. No. Ferrex is just not... Oh, there we go. That's surely a crit. Okay, 31 for 19 points of fire damage. That would be great if it were true, but if you notice that this applied the Pyromancer burning damage over time, if for whatever reason that were a misplay and we undo it, not only does it refund the health and damage, but it also gets rid of the damage over time. So it kind of is able to clean up the whole mess if there's anything that didn't quite go right. All right, let's see, more questions. Sorry, yeah, FML2. Hopefully that quick little monk build answered your question about sort of unarmed type combat. This will be uploaded to YouTube at some point. I don't know exactly when, but yes, at some point. Alex says, now would be a great time to pause and do a giveaway. A month of Patreon as giveaways should be good. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think now would actually be a great time to pause and do a giveaway while there's still so many of you assembled and watching. And the giveaway for today will be access to the Patreon playtest of Crucible. So all you have to do to be eligible for that is be right here in chat. I'm just going to grab everyone's list of names and put a roll table together, and I'm going to I'll draw 4 of you or so who can be winners, who, if you're interested, I'll give you access to the playtest even if you are not a Patreon member. So that'll be a backdoor way into the Patreon playtest. So don't go anywhere. Just stick around. I'm just going to put an AFK screen up here real quick. And in the background, I'm going to be preparing that little table. Here we go. Ooh. Ooh. Wah, wah. I'll just say all that again real quick. So I'm back. I made a table for the giveaway. 214 of you are eligible for it because you were logged into Twitch, so thank you very much. I'm just going to roll a couple times on the table, and if you're a winner, all you have to do is say in chat, I accept, and I will give you access to the Crucible playtest. As soon as it is available for Patreon, you will also get access to the playtest materials. So, without further ado, the first winner is Clement EXE. The second winner is Where's the Mead? Third winner, Josnig. Well deserved for your excellent questions today. And the fourth winner is Lanarchy74. Clement EXE, Where's the Mead, Josnig, and Lanarchy74. If you are interested, all you have to do is in chat, please let me know you accept, and I will get you access to the Crucible playtest as soon as it's available. Josnig, I see, accepts. Well done. And let's see if anyone... Clement EXE accepts. Awesome. That's 2 for 4 so far. Let's see if we get anything from Where's the Mead or Lanarchy74. Otherwise, I'm going to roll again. In the meantime, let me see if there's a question I can answer while I wait for them to respond. Question from Dork Elf. What happens to mono builds focused on one attribute as much as possible or other forms of attribute min-maxing? It is possible to do. However, what you'll find is that such a build is going to be really crippled in other areas, and some of your defense types are going to be low enough that you may have a very hard time staying alive as a character that invests exclusively into a single attribute. It's a high risk, high reward strategy, I'd put it that way. I don't think I've seen anything yet from Lanarchy or from Where's the Mead, so we're going to roll again. 2 more times. Get ready. Here we go. All right, we've got Coverasalt 333 and Rysess. Coverasalt 333 and Rysess. If either of you are here and are interested, you are winners of access to the Crucible playtest when it becomes available. Punmaster D. This stream won't touch too much on social or exploration play, although there are some systems that are in mind for those pillars of gameplay that I think are going to be interesting and unique in Crucible. The first playtest of Crucible is a little bit more focused on the kind of tactical combat side of the system, because that's where the balance and the design is a little bit more... it's a little bit more important to nail down. I think the social and exploration mechanics are going to use a lot of the same dice mechanics, a lot of the same sorts of approaches that combat uses, but applied in a different venue. And so getting balance nailed down a little bit for combat is where we've chosen to really start. Rysess, I accept. Awesome. Congratulations to you. And do we have anything from Coverasalt 333? Don't think we've got anything from Coverasalt, so we're going to roll again. Melakar. If you are here, Melakar, you are a winner. I feel like Melikar might have asked a question earlier. I don't remember exactly. Let's see. Let's see if we get a bite. Melikar accepts. Fantastic. All right, we've got 4 very worthy winners: Clement, Josnig, Rysas, and Melikar. Just send me a DM on Twitch up at the top. Just send me a message directly to this channel. Remind me of who you are on the Foundry VTT website. I just need your username so that I can make sure to add access to you. Don't be alarmed that there's nothing to get access to today. The playtest is not available just yet. It will be a couple more days before it is. And then once it is, you'll be able to install it right away. All right. Yeah, so Zarek, the final respec mechanics are not really determined just yet, but for the purposes of playtesting on the talent tree, there's 2 things. One is you can just right-click on a talent node to remove it, and you get your point back, so you can retrain very easily. This is, specifically for playtesting. We made it very easy for you to, swap out your talents and, swap them over to new things to try other things. There's also a button at the bottom to reset the whole tree all at once and refund all of your talents. So I don't think that, in the long run, it may or may not work like that. There may be some slight more restrictions on the way that retraining or respecking works, but for the purposes of the playtest, we wanted it to be very easy to swap out, oh, I don't want Iromancer after all. I want to take Gesture Pulse and I want to try that. So you can just remove a talent and add another one. That isn't the goal for the system eventually is that character advancement options have, meaning and weight, and that once you've chosen, I take a talent, well, that in theory is what you did, and there might be some capacity to retrain or something like that. But I also think that that's a fairly table specific decision to make in terms of different DMs and different players might want different assumptions about how strict those rules should be. So I don't want to overreach on the system strictness and take away agency that different tables can apply in terms of what do we as a table want the rules for retraining to be. All right, let's see. I want to show a little bit more. I've been going for a while here, but there's a lot more I could show. I'm going to do some lightning rounds on a few other things. I want to show a little bit about weapons, armors, adversaries. So let's talk weaponry real quick. I won't go into all of the depths of detail about weaponry, but some things to know about equipment. Equipment, like weapons, has a... I'm going to import one of these so I can show as an example. Equipment, like weapons, has a weight. It has a base, a quantity in case you have more than one of the thing. It has a base cost. Weapons have a category, and different weapon categories have important meanings in terms of how those weapons scale, what types of attribute scaling they use. So for example, here on the weapons journal, you see heavy one-handed weapons scale off of strength and have a base damage of 8 and an action cost of 1. There's different properties of weapons. I actually should show some ranged combat, projectile combat with reloading and things like that. That's pretty cool too. I'll show that in a minute. Weapons also have a damage type, of course. They have quality and enchantment tiers. So you'll notice that as the quality tier of the weapon changes, its damage changes as well as its scaled value changes. Same with the enchantment tier, scales the value of the weapon. So there's automatic price computation built into the system of what is item value. So if you were to have a masterwork quality legendary bastard sword of ambushing, the system will automatically compute a rarity and cost associated with that item for you that you would kind of know. So as you're configuring the item, some of those attributes, there's a built-in scaling formula for that. And then as the GM, of course, if you have an NPC in your world that's buying or selling, they might over or under offer, potentially as a byproduct of, the results of a mercantilism roll. But there's a system built in for placing valuation on items, and it is based on a rarity system. There's also a system in place for broken weapons. So a weapon can become broken through use, and when it is broken, it has some penalties to its usage. It deals less damage. And so you can have a broken state that your weapon might need repair at some point. There's mechanics for that. I could talk more about this weaponry stuff, but there's, it's all in the playtest rules, and you'll have the opportunity to play more with that yourself in a bit. One note about quality is quality affects the damage bonus of the weaponry, and enchantment tier affects the attack bonus, the enchantment attack bonus of the weaponry. So enchantment's a little bit better than quality in this case, but they both can give item progression in a vertical sense as you get better and better weapons, as well as other kind of one-off magical effects that weapons might have. Like a weapon could have a skill associated with it that gives you an entirely unique action that you can perform only with this weapon. So there's lots of really cool things that can open up with like magic items, magic weapons, magic armor, things like that. The possibilities are very exciting for that in the system, and with regards to how the automation for it would work. With armor, similarly, there's armor categories: unarmored, light, medium, heavy, natural. Armor has a trading scale between armor defense and dodge defense. So armors that give more dodge-based defense give less armor-based defense. There's also an important mechanic with armor that is called the dodge scaling threshold. So as you gain additional dexterity, you have the opportunity to get more and more dodge with a piece of armor, but only as your dexterity surpasses a certain threshold, which depends on the type of armor it is. So the math here is worked out to really have like a good level curve based scaling of physical defenses, both, so that the progression of your defense and the progression of your offense kind of keeps character development on the right statistical distribution. There's not really too much more to say about armor. It also has quality and enchantment tiers. It also has a value that is going to change depending on the rarity level, or maybe I haven't programmed that yet. I guess I haven't done that yet, but conceptually it will. Armor can also be broken, which cuts in half the effective armor-based defense if your armor gets broken. There's certain abilities that could even cause armor to become broken, and it has to be repaired after that. So there's certain things that that you might face in a game environment that would play using those mechanics. Zelda emulation, broken weapons everywhere. Yeah, well, I think it adds a nice layer to gameplay that I'm pleased to have. It's not a complicated system, but I think it does add a nice mechanization of some things that tend to come up conceptually. I want to talk about adversaries. The adversary system is something that has been coming together more recently, and is something that I'm excited about, but it is less fully developed than the character progression system at this point. But I want to go through creating an adversary with you, or I'll start by just kind of looking at one. This Ogre Berserker, for example, adversaries progress in a way that's very similar to characters, in that where characters, when you build a character, you choose an ancestry and a background. When you're building an adversary, you instead are choosing a taxonomy and an archetype. The combination of taxonomy and archetype classifies the type of adversary, the type of enemy that a certain thing is. Now, this Ogre Berserker, its taxonomy is ogre. So we could have lots of different types of ogres. Instead of berserkers, we could have an ogre mage, or an ogre coward, or even an ogre assassin. But all of the ogre mage, the ogre, coward, and the ogre assassin, all four of those would be ogres. They would all have in common the ogre taxonomy. What that means is that if I were to make an actor like the, ogre mage, one of the starting places that I would want to do for that actor is, well, I'll just go and grab the ogre. I'll go and grab the ogre taxonomy for my mage so that my mage is also an ogre and has certain aspects of scaling that are shared with all other ogres. In addition to the taxonomy, though, I have an archetype where this particular ogre is a berserker, but not all ogres would be berserkers. Some ogres would be some other type of archetype. And I don't have a huge list of these created to show from right now, but let's just create an archetype real quick for something like a mage. I'm not going to bother giving it a fancy icon, but like a mage archetype. We could say mages in general tend to have, more intellect and more presence and more wisdom at the expense of a little bit lesser of the physical stats. So we define how the ability scaling for the archetype is going to progress as the character, as creatures of this archetype advance in levels. We can also give archetypes, as well as potentially taxonomies as well, certain talents. Like we might say that a mage is going to have, certain talents that all mage archetypes just kind of get for free. We'll give Counterspell and the Fire rune, and we'll give the Death rune, and we'll give the Fan gesture, and we'll give the Ray gesture, and we'll give the Arrow gesture. You might give fewer talents than this. This might be overload, but this is like a sort of loadout that you can configure that all mage archetypes would have when you're creating NPC characters. So we save the mage. We're going to drop our mage archetype onto the ogre. We now have an ogre mage, taxonomy and archetype, and our mage has automatically gotten all of these gestures and spell components that they then can use. We also know, because of the combination of their taxonomy, their archetype, we know how this character is going to scale. Their taxonomy of ogre gives them more strength and toughness and a little bit less of the mental stats, but their archetype of mage gives them a little bit more of the mental stats. So this ogre mage is probably going to be pretty balanced. As we level the ogre mage up, we notice that each time the ogre mage advances in level, it's gaining additional ability scores, and those ability scores progress automatically as I'm taking this ogre mage up to level 12. I've just made a level 12 ogre mage, and I'm done. If I didn't have to make the mage archetype to begin with, if I didn't have to make the mage archetype to begin with, this process would have taken about 3 seconds to make a level 12 ogre mage. Resistances also progressed, and those resistances and vulnerabilities came through the ogre taxonomy. Of course, I can add additional custom talents to my ogre mage that don't come for free just from the archetype. That's not the only way that an NPC can have talents. I can give certain things like I want my ogre mage to be a necromancer. I can just add that talent to the ogre mage. I'm still working on some systems for like how to keep balance around like adding additional talents beyond what the archetype and the taxonomy provide. But this would be a totally fully usable ogre mage character that I've made now. I mean, I want to give it like token artwork and stuff, but this mage can come in, and I'll show you an example of the fan gesture. This is cool. We'll do like a fan of death. The fan gesture is a template attack. Oh, sorry, I thought I was doing cone. Yeah, fan's a little bit narrower. So suppose I'm over here. Like, I can do like a fan gesture. It's like a sort of AoE cleaving sweep that goes through and critically hits the conjurer and gives them because of the necromancer ability, they now have the necromantic decay, damage over time effect, and so all of that just kind of starts working as soon as you have those talents on the character, as soon as you've given the taxonomy, the archetype. It allows you to scale the creature that you've made, not just by level, but also by challenge, by threat multiplier. So in addition to level, there's a threat multiplier that you can apply to creatures, minion, normal, elite, or boss. where minion is a sort of less advantaged, less capable of action, less powerful version, but otherwise kind of at the same general challenge level. Normal is what a standard enemy at that level would have. Elite would be kind of like an elite boss type of, say, that would be probably appropriate for an ogre mage, is that an ogre mage might be like an elite tier enemy at whatever level you choose to put them. And then if they were a named ogre mage, like, Kormungandus Orlgfarg the Terrible. If this is my ogre mage, that your players all must learn how to pronounce their name or perish, then you might be talking more about like a named boss tier, and you'd put them up at the boss level, where they get even more action to spend, they get more resources, they get better resistances. So boss tier enemies start to get quite scary. But yeah, so that's a quick lightning round introduction to creature building using archetypes and taxonomies. Our hyena that we were using before belonged to the hyena taxonomy and to the pack member archetype. Because they were in the pack member archetype, they automatically got the pack hunter talent. It gives them more boons when they're attacking flanked enemies. I could, for example, very easily start the process of making like a wolf, where I've already got, part of the puzzle. I've already got the pack member archetype that I need. I just need to create a wolf taxonomy. And then if I create a wolf taxonomy, I can have a wolf pack member. I can have a wolf alpha. I can have a dire wolf. I can have a dire wolf den mother. I can have 4 or 5 different tiers of wolves that all take that wolf taxonomy and scale it, and continue progressing it at different levels of difficulty, to pose different challenges to different groups. My voice is maybe starting to go, so this might be a signal, a herald, a portent of the end. FML2, I haven't created a dragon taxonomy or an archetype that might be suitable for a dragon just yet, although I guess the dragon mage, you could certainly have a dragon mage, or but yes, I could, we could certainly think about like what would a dragon taxonomy look like. And it might be that not all dragons share the same taxonomy. It might be that you want to have like black dragons and fire dragons and cloud dragons, all of which are a little bit different. And so, suppose let's make like a magma dragon, and we want to say, well, our magma dragon is maximum, resistance scaling to fire, but offset by vulnerable to cold, really pretty resistant to radiant, but kind of vulnerable to void, and strong against poison, but vulnerable to, maybe not poison. We'll do strong against acid as well, but maybe vulnerable to corruption. So we set up a set of resistances and vulnerabilities that are going to scale for the dragon. We'll say that our magma dragon is going to be mostly strength-based, highly tough, not so dexterous, maybe not so wise, pretty good presence. The way that the mechanics of balance work here is that your points that you put in here have to sum to 18. So we see that I'll need to take intellect down a point if I want this to be a valid taxonomy. And so your resistances all have to sum to 0. Your base abilities all have to sum to, your ability scaling all have to sum to 18. And that's what would make, I'll just say beast for now because I don't have a category for like dragon here. It's a magma dragon. Obviously, if I were doing this for real, I'd make this a little bit more interesting. But what I can do now that I have that taxonomy in place is I can create, a juvenile magma dragon. And I'll add my magma dragon taxonomy to it. And I'll say that all, just for the purposes of being sort of quick here, I'll say that all magma dragons are just going to use the, berserker archetype. Our juvenile magma dragon is going to be level 6 as a elite, and there we go. We've got a juvenile magma dragon, and then we'll give ourselves a adult magma dragon that is going to have the same taxonomy, and we'll also give it the berserker archetype. I'm just not going to spend any time making a different archetype and say, these are, the adult is a boss and level 12 boss dragon. And so the adult has, more than twice the amount of health, more morale, 12 strength instead of 8 strength, 12 toughness instead of 8 toughness. But otherwise, it shares a very common scaling profile in terms of, like, if you look at its saving throws, if you look at its resistances. The boss magma dragon, has, I think I got my resistance scaling values backwards because I made him more resistant to acid than fire. I'd have to switch that. But you get the basic idea that, like, we've made the adult the proportionally and auto-scaled better version of the juvenile that should make this quite easy to build out, and then also to adjust if in the course of play you need to say, well, let's make the dragon slightly weaker. Vex, it's not quite 50. It's not quite that simple. In this case, it has worked out that way, but progressing from level 6 to level 12, you would have, and then it's not just a matter of 6 to 12, but also elite to boss. So you notice, like, a level 6 boss has more than a level 6 elite. And so there's 2 dimensions there in terms of how the scaling is happening. It's not any simple rule like that. But if I were to make them both elite, they have the same stats at level 6, but when you go up to level 12, from 6 to 12, you're going to have 6 more points to spend, the same rules that a player character has. So the auto scaling for this creature has put, we put 1 into wisdom, 2 into presence, 1 into intellect, 2 into strength. Or I guess you get a little bit more because you're an elite, because you scale it faster than 1 to 1. If I made them both normal, then this guy should have exactly 6 more ability points than this guy. So 1 in presence, 2 in strength, 2 in toughness, 1 in dexterity. Yeah, so that's 6. At normal tier, you're scaling 1 to 1, the same progression curve that a player character scales at. So a level 6 juvenile magic dragon up to a level 12 adult magma dragon, if they're both normal tier adversaries, then they're scaling kind of according to the same rules that a player character scales at. Now, if they're elite tier, they cheat a little bit and they scale faster than a player character scales at. And if they're boss tier, then they cheat extra and they scale extra fast compared to what a player character would scale at. Josnig asks, does adversary size also have number scaling or other mechanical implications? I like that idea. I haven't added any automation around the size scaling yet, but I certainly think that it ought to have some bearing on some of this stuff. And so integrating the size as an auto-scaling component is one that I'd like to definitely make sure that happens at some point. Yeah, something like that, Vex. Like if you went from being giant to being tiny, you might be more dexterous and a little less strong, but you might have some other offsets. And so, yeah, I think some size ramifications for some of this would be a really cool way to add a little bit more ease of integration of different types. I don't know exactly how that would work in terms of the raw math, but I think conceptually it's a useful example, a useful idea. Question from 117KK, will there be a bestiary for free, or will those be considered paid content expansions? I don't know. I think I would envision, for sort of a basic, sort of generic kind of fantasy baseline, I would envision providing some of these taxonomies and archetypes for free as part of the base system, so that there's a basis for building adversaries very quickly. Apollo asks about, I presume you're asking about size effects on player characters. This is something I've been thinking about a little bit, and like what I want to do if a player character is like small or giant. Well, maybe not giant, but at least maybe large, like small, medium, large is sort of like the three options that are suitable for player characters, and what to do differently according to that size. Part of it might have to do with stride and movement speed, part of it might have to do with carrying capacity, part of it might have to do with some aspect of other gameplay where, smaller has some advantages, bigger has some other different advantages. That's something that I'm trying to think about the best way to handle. RatherX asked, will the system use item trading features where the players can trade and drag and drop equipment with each other? I haven't built anything like that yet, but I do think like making it easier to trade items back and forth would be a key part of the type of highly automated kind of gamified experience that I want to provide with Crucible. Not just trading items, but like looting treasure chests and pulling stuff into your equipment and then swapping it back and forth with your allies and dividing up treasure, and all of those systems. I want there to be really strong, automated, kind of gamified frameworks to make that process fun and easy to manage during the game session. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that like first impressions of the adversary building system are positive. I feel really positively about it because I think that like I guess I've sort of fallen a little bit in love with like the simplicity and the balance of simplicity and power in it. I really love, like, for example, like for your conjurer, as your conjurer levels up, it's so easy to like level up your summons with you. Like, oh, I'm level 12 now, so my summon should be level 6. It's so easy to do that and not have to worry about anything else. And the math all really works in an elegant way, and mechanically it's remaining balanced. And so it's all really easy, and the fun becomes more about like, I want to create a bunch of archetypes and taxonomies for myself so that I can then start populating my world with all the different variations of wolves and all the different types of, mages that, we've got ogre mages and skeleton mages and hobgoblin mages, and we've got, city guard mages, and we've got, all these different things, like those raw building blocks of NPC creation that then become reusable and mix and matchable. I think it's a really cool way to approach the problem, and I'm excited to see that kind of continue to grow. All right, let's see. Apollo asks, speaking of summons, how do they impact encounter balance? They don't. The weight of encounter balance is already the player character's weight. Their level has already affected encounter balance, and the summons are just an extension of that character's power, a manifestation of that character's power. Ace asks, is there an action or way to learn monster resistances, weaknesses, other stats like PF2E's recall knowledge? Yes, there are multiple methods for this. One I can show you as an example is, for example, this like starting talent for Intuit weakness. Like it's a starting intellect talent. You can perform a which knowledge test would depend on the type of creature that it is, and it's up to the GM discretion to decide which knowledge test it would be. But you perform a knowledge test, and if you're successful, you would learn one damage type the creature is vulnerable to, if any. That's specifically for intuiting weakness. There's others that let you learn about resistances, or things like, this isn't specifically for like learning resistances and vulnerabilities, but there's things like recognize spellcraft, where If you're close enough to another spellcaster who's casting a spell, you can automatically identify which rune is being used if you yourself have mastered that rune. That's a really important part of the counterspelling system. So like your ability to counter enemy magic depends on your ability to fashion a spell which is in some way opposed to the spell that's being cast. So instead of just a catch-all counterspell spell that's sort of a magic trump card that beats everything, to counter a spell you have to actually counter that spell, and to counter a particular spell you have to be able to recognize or successfully predict which spell is actually being cast so that you can counter it. And so there's a lot of like mechanical depth there that I'm really excited to get into as I'm continuing to develop out the counterspelling system. But things like talents that let you learn more about your enemies, this is something that I definitely want to have heavily represented on the talent tree, because, you know, ways to make your character feel special and cool and then enshrine that in game mechanics so that you have a justification for it. Like, playing like a high intellect character in an RPG is sometimes tough because, like, we as humans may or may not be high intellect, but we want our character to be an intellectual badass, and like having talents that make it easy for your character to be really clever, even if you as a player haven't been taking like the best campaign notes, I thought is something that's really important. Like, so for example, there's a talent in intellect for mnemonic realization that I really like, where, for example, you can, once per day, you can focus your thoughts and you attempt to recall a word that sparks your memory. And so basically, like, you have to tell your game master what you're trying to figure out more about, and then the game master is obligated to give you a one-word clue that helps you to like figure out what you're trying to puzzle through. And, you know, you as a player may not have remembered that the guy's name was, Gerund, but like through use of mnemonic realization, your GM might give you the clue that you're missing or that you need to solve the puzzle, and it can help your character feel like very satisfied in their ability to do good things. So like, this is an example of the type of talent that I'm trying to really load the tree up with, that give opportunities for rich kind of character play where, you know, you're backed up by your talents, not necessarily by your own ability to improvise as a role player. Although, you know, more role playing is great, better role playing is great, but I don't want someone to feel like their character's ineffective because they're not, you know, a professionally trained voice actor or something like that. I think I'm gonna about have to wrap it up here. My own energy level is hitting 0, and I gotta save a bit for the Free Project Friday stream tomorrow. But I really hope you've all enjoyed this kind of deep dive into the system. There's so many amazing signature talents that I didn't get a chance to like show you yet. I kind of had wanted to like go through all these and show like what some of them can do. They're all like really cool, really great examples of like different gameplay styles, and but you know, all of that can save for later streams, and of course you're all going to have access to the system before too long for playtesting, and so I'm sure that will all just kind of come out naturally over time. But yeah, really, really excited to have your company, and I'm eager to continue the conversation with you all in Discord, keep talking about it, keep working with you all to kind of make the system better and support the playtest, and hopefully work towards a situation where this is a system that, you know, it may not be the best choice for everybody. It won't be the best choice for everybody, but I would love it if Crucible were viewed as like the best RPG system option out there for some groups. That would make me feel so amazing if I was able to achieve that. And so, you know, that's what we're working towards. Awesome. Thank you all for the really kind comments, folks that are mentioning how impressive it is. Really appreciate that. I do want to reiterate what I said at the beginning, and I know that this maybe seems like pretty polished and pretty far along, and I do think it's polished, and I do think it's far along. It's far enough along that I'm happy to extend the opportunity for playtesting to the community and start taking those next steps. But please just be patient and remember that this is really early. Like, there's a lot of things that need significant continued work in order to make them realize their potential, and I'm aware of that, and you all will be aware of that as well. It's a very open, it's a very alpha early look at what we're trying to do, and it's going to be a long ways to get it to anything that feels really like comprehensive or complete, but there's a path and there's a goal, and I'm excited to keep working down it. All right, everybody, that I think is a good place to leave it for today. I will be in touch in the coming days about availability of the playtest. I don't think it'll be too long, but I do just want to make sure that we have documented the things that we need to document. I've been working on it. I've been working on fixing some bugs. I've been working on getting all of this stuff written. But there are still some sections of this text that I feel like need to be, tidied up just a little bit before we, before, like, talent tree overview to do. We probably need to have a written talent tree overview. As cool as the talent tree is to just like open up and figure out yourself, we probably need some things written here so that we can then hand this over to people for, playtesting without just it being to do. So there's stuff that still needs to happen in order for the playtest to come together. But we're working as quickly as we can on that so that it will be available to you all before very long. So thank you very much for your interest. I'll catch you in the Discord for more questions and answers in the Crucible chat channel. And if you have not yet, be sure to in the roles requests channel in Discord, be sure to opt into the Crucible user interest role, because I'm going to use that role to ping people about Crucible related announcements. So if you are interested in this, I suggest picking up that role in the Discord server so you can get those announcements as well. Okay, awesome. Thank you all very much. Really, this has been a lot of fun. There's so much more I could have talked about, but I feel like I also covered a lot of ground. So I'm feeling satisfied with what I was able to get through. And thank you for your patience with this being delayed from last week. With that, I will leave you all for the evening. Hope you have a really wonderful weekend coming up. Please do come back tomorrow, same channel, for our Free Project Friday team broadcast. It's going to be really fun. The whole team's going to be there. We're going to be showing off some cool stuff that we're building. I hope to see you all for that show tomorrow afternoon. And until then, I bid you farewell.